Alright.
Ready to go? I'll call the meeting to order, moved by member Poisey, seconded by member Roblinski, that the meeting be open at 6 p.m. All in favor? Okay. And I need a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda. Moved by, push our hands, member Roblinski, seconded by member Poisey. That the agenda presented to the Planning Advisory Committee dated the 3rd of December 2024 be adopted as prepared. All in favor? That's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Adoption of the previous minutes. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by seconded by member Foisey. That the minutes of the Planning Advisory Committee meeting of the 12th day of November 2024 be adopted as circulated. All in favor? That's great. So we're going to move into a consent application. We've got a planning report for consent. I would imagine our planning administrator will be walking us through a bit of a presentation.
Yeah, I can take it away. The consent application reference V6/2024 is an application for consent, land severance, to create 3 new additional lots plus the retained lots. So the property, for anyone unfamiliar, it's generally where Line 3 South meets Highway 17, and then off the east side of that, so running parallel to Highway 17. So there's been extensive pre-application consultation with the applicant and various stakeholders, and some of that is summarized in the report, which we can go over briefly now. But just to give some details about the proposed lots. So the retained lot would be to the north of Highway 17. So that would have an approximate frontage of 814 meters and an approximate area of 29 hectares. And then the land to be severed up to the south comprises lot 1, which is approximately 221 meters of frontage and 2.8 hectares of land. So that is the easternmost lot, or would be, and then there's the central lot would be lot 2. So lot 2 would have a frontage of 221 meters and an approximate area of 3.3 hectares. And the final lot, the larger of the 3 to be severed, is lot 3. So it's would have an approximate area of 7.18 hectares and a frontage of 340 meters. So in evaluating the application, we've looked at the provincial planning statement, which we mentioned previously came into effect on the 20th of October of this year. So that runs in parallel, if you like, with the official plan and zoning by law that we have in place. So just some relevant policies here. Policy 2.5 of the PPS states a number of different factors about building upon rural character, accommodating a range and mix of housing, utilizing rural infrastructure, and conserving biodiversity. So application consultations have taken place with North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority. This revealed the presence of an area, an approximate regulated area, as it's referred to, which just an area of a water body, a small water body on the property that would need to be avoided. So they have requested that should any development be proposed within 30 meters of that watercourse, or a smaller area of wetland that exists, that a Section 28 permit would be required. From a transportation perspective, policy 3.3 of the PPS refers to major goods movements corridors, which for future purposes, Highway 17 can be classed as. It's the Trans-Canada Highway. It's the main network, if you like, in the whole of the country. And there was previously some kind of preliminary design and class environmental assessment work done back in 2013, which talked about the potential to do a dual laning of that section to River Glen effectively. But we understand that's not immediately forthcoming, let's say. So it's not really gonna have much impact either at the current time or in the future either, I would say, in terms of this property. And such matters would be resolved with the MTO as and when that came about. From a natural assets perspective, so we're familiar with that development constraints area that I mentioned, which is being addressed by a proposed condition. Agriculture wise, we did a bit of a scoping on that, and it did not reveal, according to minimum distance separation formulae, we didn't identify any barns or any particularly sensitive agriculture uses in proximity to the property, which would be affected longer term. In terms of Bonfield's policy, so we have the official plan 2013. I won't go over some of the bits I've just mentioned, but one here, policy 3.8, refers to Trans-Canada Pipeline and we need pre-consultation. So again, pre-consultation was done and a condition was provided to us that certain setbacks would need to be met and that development could not occur within the easement, and just various approvals would need to be required from the applicant or any future purchaser of the property. Most affected if this is lot 1 actually that falls within that kind of threshold. From the wetlands perspective, it's noted again that the Conservation Authorities Act in 2022 and more recent regulations in February 2024 reduced the sphere of influence that conservation authorities have, and therefore, you know, there wouldn't be any influence beyond, say, a 30-metre setback from those watercourses. Skirting by here. So policy 7.11.2.1 refers to the creation of new lots, and really in terms of access requirements, initially the preference of the MTO was for the whole property to be serviced off a municipally managed road, which is standard. But when an assessment was done on Line 3 South at the point where potentially a road could have connected, it was identified that there was a presence of a cliff, which would require a 20 to 40% gradient, and also could lead to potential blind spots. So this just wouldn't be really satisfactory for a highways planning perspective. And also recognizing there's already 2 existing points of entry off Highway 17. And so there'd only be 1 additional driveway that would be required to service the additional lot. So yeah, that kind of summarizes some of the feedback we've received. There is some conditions that have been drafted as well. But just to summarize, the application proposes the creation of 3 new lots plus the retained lands. Matters related to the water cost can be addressed through condition with 30-metre buffer, which also would be vegetated. Otherwise, a Section 28 permit would be required. The MTO has confirmed the proposed 2 entrances and the 1 new entrance can be considered acceptable. So again, permits will be required from the MTO to enact these lots. And again, setbacks and restrictions apply in terms of the pipeline which runs along the eastern boundary of the lot number 1. And that would be the summary.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments at this point?
I have a comment actually, so just because the sketches would differ a little bit, right? So the lot as it is right now, is that the boundary right here?
That's right.
Okay, so when it says retained this portion, so is it this whole portion stays and then it's 3 being cut? But there's another sketch I saw earlier today when I was
That's split there.
yeah, this is split.
Right. Yeah, no, that's because they were shown as different land holdings in terms of the system, but they're both under the same ownership of the same.
Okay, so this is all the same currently.
Yeah,
And the applicant is splitting these 3 away, but these are getting retained, but they're still the same.
that's
ownership.
right.
Okay,
And so he owns, or the applicant owns no adjoining lands?
On the desktop search that I did, I couldn't locate any more than that, but I maybe would have to double check. But it's no, I don't think so.
Yeah, because we used to sometimes, you know, in their sketch, they
Yeah.
kind of show the ownership around.
Right. No, I don't believe he owns more than that parcel to the north.
No, but we'd look into that as one of the
Certainly, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of this will be addressed.
Yes,
through
in
the
there.
survey
We know
anyway.
it's-
Anything.
He doesn't own any adjacent land to the lands that are under
Yeah,
review tonight. Yeah.
okay, and then this one, my other, that I brought. Was the snowmobile, club, did you look into them? Were they notified of this?
I didn't specifically, I mean, there was public notifications that went out, there was a sign, and it went on the website, so the usual processes, but I did speak to if you're referring to this property here near the intersection.
The whole thing, the snowmobile
Oh, in
trail,
terms of an easement.
I think it's an A-trail, goes right up here in front of those properties. So
Yeah,
usually in our official plan, we ask that they be, addressed as well. So I was just wondering if they were served any notice.
not specifically, no, no conversation taking place there, but, again, these matters could be resolved, afterwards through the detailed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
ultimately, it's gonna be up to the property owner if they wanna allow the snowmobile trail to continue unless it's actually on a.
We just sometimes would address them to ask if they
Right.
have any concerns of the severance. Like it could all be on the right of way, I'm not quite sure.
Right.
Because I
Yeah,
think it's I think it's a trail, that goes out onto Talon. Right up through here, I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
the applicant did raise questions about historic rights of way that he doesn't see as still being valid to the property, so that again.
Yeah, I think we've given them thought in our official plan in 2013 about snowmobile trails, so.
Okay.
It's just another checklist.
Yeah, absolutely, no, it's
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, we can continue with this evening, then obviously if you discover something, I mean, it's still going to council, so
yeah,
it can be addressed there if there's any significant.
Yeah, because I think it might be Ken Prescott who could give you,
Who's that?
Ken Prescott he's involved with the snowmobile.
Oh, okay.
club.
I have a contact.
okay.
Yeah. You might be able to.
Yeah, but I mean, they didn't reach out directly either, so I mean, yeah, there's been no other comments from the public. All of the agencies are satisfied that we've addressed their concerns, so I don't therefore have any concerns.
Yeah, because we just say that in 6.52 that snow machine trails will ensure that these routes are protected.
Yeah, we can,
Okay.
and through the official plan review as well, we can certainly look to ensure that, that network is being protected or enhanced or whatever moving forward.
Yeah.
I'm not dismissing the point.
No,
about it,
no,
yeah,
no,
but
no,
it's something-
I was just bringing it up
Yeah.
as another, as another check, they might not have seen it.
Yeah.
Or put them. I don't know if you do letters to interested parties, I'm not sure how your end works.
Yeah,
Certainly, something we can look
Yeah.
at.
yeah,
So these lots won't be able to be severed again, that's it, 3 plus 1 retained, that's it.
That's right.
And is he retaining the larger one? Did I see something retained?
Yeah, that's these images here.
This
that's what
one
kind of
says
confused me.
retained,
Yeah, that's. what
number 3.
confused me.
That's
That was
Yeah.
an initial sketch that was done, so I just provided that as an aerial show the wider land holdings. It's this.
Okay,
whatever that applies in terms of.
okay, so that, take that out.
Mhm.
okay, any other questions or comments? So we'll need a mover and a seconder, and then I shall read the motion. By number 4, seconded by Member Poisey. The Planning Advisory Committee recommends to council that consent application 36/2024 Andre. Concession 11 North Park Lot 17 Parcel 3774 be approved with the following conditions. 1, that this approval applies to the consent to sever application to create 3 new lots. Plus the retained lands on concession 11 North Park Lot 17 Parcel 3774 zoned rural. 2, that the following documents be provided. The original executed transfer deed, a duplicate original and 1 photocopy for our records. B, a copy of the survey plan deposited in the land titles office if required. C, an electronic copy of the survey emailed to planning@bondfieldtownship.com. D, a schedule describing the severed parcel attached to the transfer for approval purposes. E, a schedule that provides a registerable legal description attached to the transfer for the retained land for approved purposes if required. 3, if there is a forced road situation, a 20-meter road allowance or whichever amount is required for road purposes shall be transferred to the municipality at the owner's expense across the whole lot or parcel for which the severance was taken, and compensation shall be awarded as per the compensation grid for the transfer of forced roads. 4, that the building setbacks for the buildings must meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw for the retained and or severed lots, whichever are affected at the time of survey. 5, a fee in lieu of parkland dedication for each transfer document shall be deposited in the office of the clerk prior to the stamping of any transfer document regarding a subdivision or a consent for each new lot for the purpose of determining the amount of payment, and that bylaw 2024-26 Schedule A being a bylaw for tariff of fees for the purpose of applications and associated fees made in respect to of planning matters for park and or recreational purposes shall apply. 6, if any, all tax arrears must be paid prior to the stamping of transfer documents for the new lot. 7, that the North Bay Meadow Conservation Authority 1, be consulted through the development of individual site plans associated with the proposed development of severed and or retained lots. And 2, that the vegetative buffer be maintained of at least 30 meters from the approximate regulated area, including the watercourse and wetland on the property. And 3, that the section 28 permit be required should development be proposed within the ARA. 8, that the Ministry of Transportation 1, be consulted through the development of individual site plans associated with the proposed development of severed and or retained lots, and that 2, entrance permits plus MTO building and land use permits be required for any new buildings and structures or site alterations, including but not limited to grading or paving, septic systems, and wells proposed to be located within 45 meters of the property boundary with Highway 17 or within 395 meters of the center point of the intersection with Highway 17. And 3, that all new buildings and structures maintain a minimum setback of 14 meters from the highway property line. And 4, that wells maintained a minimum setback of 30 meters from the highway property line. Number 9, the applicant enters into an agreement with the Trans-Canada Pipeline, and that the conditions, restrictions, and covenants specified by Trans-Canada Pipelines Limited shall be registered against title by agreement in relation to the lands by way of application to register conditions, restrictions, or covenants as applicable pursuant to the Land Titles Act or any amendments thereto. All in favor? It's carried.
I have a question. ARA. What's that?
The approximate regulated area. So it's based upon the kind of a mapping that the North Bay Matterhorn Conservation Authority does. So some of it's topographical to look at it, and then obviously as they work their way through, they evaluate that. So that's why it's approximate, because it's done on the basis of topography and aerial imagery. And
Okay, thank you. Moving into other business, the draft bylaw prepared by staff in consultation with the Planning Advisory Committee be forwarded to council for further consideration and or approval. That is our goal this evening. We will go through this draft bylaw once again. We're going to ask our planning advisor to walk us through what we have before us is a very bare bones bylaw that we'll be looking for direction from this committee as to how we would like to proceed. I think it's incumbent upon us to try and land on some direction this evening. So looking forward to fulsome conversations. I'll probably on various points go around the table looking for opinions and asking specifically for everyone's opinions. We'll see if we can come to consensus And if we can't, we will look to majority rule on some of the points if there's any dissension, so. Okay, I will turn it over to Simon once again.
Yeah, so really just to recap, so it was, I believe it's the 12th of November when we last met, and that was off the back of internal conversations, and obviously this summer as well, I believe there was preliminary conversation around this bylaw was forthcoming and what needed to be in it. And initially there was the 4 different parts to it that got condensed to the 3 different parts, if you like. So we summarized in this draft bylaw, if you like, which is still for discussion purposes, there's still room to adapt and amend this as we move forward. But we feel that we've reached a point where we've received people's input, we've looked at other examples that, and we know the challenges that the township is facing. And so we feel that it's robust as it is, but obviously there's some room to play with this. So anything else that I should add to that?
Can I just
Good
add
coverage.
something that, like, for our committee, we're also supposed to be biased. And that, like sometimes, planning, we're trying to also balance human rights with the planning goals as well. So, from our training.
What, yeah, I
But
wonder if
for
you can
planning
elaborate on
committee-
that, I'm not sure.
Well, in our planning that
Yeah.
we, we're supposed to, like, when we took our training,
Could you
Yeah.
provide an example as to where we're not balancing human rights?
no, I'm just reminding us
Okay,
that, with the rights and with, past, the other thing I wanted
but
to
I
talk
can assure
about
you-
is just
yeah,
past.
I'll just pause there and say we are also an organized township, so it comes with responsibilities of
Oh, yes.
providing regulations and.
Straight from planning and.
No,
That I
I'm
was
just,
reading, I just kind of thought it was,
yeah, I'm not sure what
Yeah,
the
because
nuances you're referring
No,
to, so I wanted to put it on the table that we're also.
because it says zoning bylaws by their very nature can be, but also, of course, you have to do planning, of course, but
Absolutely, we will
Yeah.
look to strike that balance, I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that, for fairness, that, yeah, I hear you absolutely.
Yeah.
But we are also
yeah,
regulated and,
but our planning committee is also supposed to not be biased.
well.
Yeah,
I-
our committee.
And I will monitor that very closely. If I think a
Yeah.
member is biased, I will ensure that we are taking
Yeah.
action on that.
I didn't mean it in a bad way, we just
Appreciate that.
reminding
Are
us.
we gonna go through those?
Yeah,
Yeah,
So it's up on the screen. I will type, so this will be live. I'll do my best to type what people are watching. And then we'll just make the edits as we need to go through.
Lots of pressure typing live when everyone's watching.
And on a laptop, so yeah.
Yeah.
so do you want me to read it or,
Yes, please.
yeah? You're done reading.
Okay, I'm not reading.
Okay, so top bit, self-explanatory, so the corporation of the township of Bonfield by law number, and I forwarded it to 2025, unless it's adopted at a council meeting prior to Christmas, but I understand that it's certainly gonna be next stages to a consultation and communication on that. So it's been a bylaw to make minor housekeeping changes to comprehensive zoning bylaw 2013 as adopted by the township of Bonfield. So please, anyone just interject at any stage you've got specific comments, otherwise I'll just keep reading and assume we're okay with that point.
Sounds good.
So whereas bylaw number 2012-49, so that was the bylaw which approved in the sense the original zoning comprehensive zoning bylaw for Bonfield. As amended is the zoning bylaw of the corporation of the township of Bonfield. Whereas the council of the corporation of the township of Bonfield deems it necessary to enact a bylaw to reflect current practices, procedures, and statutory requirements. And whereas certain housekeeping changes are required, and council deems it appropriate to make these minor changes related to the provision of accessory structures, hunt camps, and additional dwelling units. And whereas authority is granted pursuant to section 38 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, to enact such amendments. And whereas the province of Ontario has enacted new legislation such as the Build More Homes Faster Act and the new provincial planning statement to encourage more housing opportunities, now therefore be enacted as a bylaw of the Corporation of the Township of Bonfield, the following. Now into the definitions. So the way that the zoning, comprehensive zoning bylaw is structured, this is for people at home rather than the committee, because they're all familiar, is that there's a series of different sections to it. So it starts with the definitions of what different terms mean. So as they're applied later on in the document, that's why it's important to define them from the outset. So the meaning of words included within this housing bylaw shall be consistent with the definitions contained within the adopted comprehensive zoning bylaw 2013, with the exception of new terms hereby described in this housekeeping bylaw amendment. Section 2. So definitions are hereby amended as follows. Amend for consistency. So really this was just the order of words, because elsewhere in the document it refers to in any order really of structure, use, buildings. So for consistency, it's proposing that it's accessory and then clarifying in brackets, building, structure or use. And that would also be reflected in the description, if you like. That's just,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's just housekeeping.
just housekeeping, yeah.
For my opinion, anybody concerns? Okay, thank you.
The next would be to add the following. So for additional dwelling units. So this is just kind of catch-all term. I mean, it has been referred to elsewhere provincially as additional residential units. But for Bonfield's purposes and to maintain understanding around this, so we're going to call it additional dwelling units. And this means a self-contained residential unit created by either an interior renovation within an existing dwelling to a maximum of 2 dwelling units within the primary structure. So that goes back to the point that we said that if it's more than 2, then it's a multi-residential unit. Point 2 is as an exterior addition, provided that one entire face of the addition is attached to the principal dwelling. Or 3 as a standalone unit within the same lot boundaries of the primary structure and subject to other zoning provisions, including minimum setbacks from property boundaries there, and appropriate site servicing arrangements covered elsewhere in this housekeeping bylaw and the comprehensive zoning bylaw for Bonfield. And whereas all dwellings listed above collectively constitute a single real estate entity. So to summarize, what we're allowing here with this is an additional 2 dwelling units per property, subject to site-specific criteria and suitability.
The first point there, maximum of 2 dwelling units within the primary structure, so that's 2 total. We're not saying 2 accessory to the primary, making it 3.
No, because that would predict multi-residential.
Is it 3 or 4? That's multi-residential.
In our bylaw right now, it's 3. So 3 or more is multi-residential. So if we allow 2 within the same structure, then it's not a multi-residential dwelling. But then you can still have the additional in an ancillary or detached accessory. It's really hard to keep the words consistent to our bylaw. But yeah, so our bylaw right now would say 3 or more. So if you have one structure with 3 units in it, that would be multi-res.
So if we were to allow 3 and it would become multi-residential, what's the problem with that? Is it because the zoning doesn't permit it?
No, if you rezone your property to multi-residential, then you can have multi-residential, but then you can't have the detached or the additional dwelling units. So that we're not creating a single property that's gonna potentially have 6 units on it, right?
Subdivision.
Right, yes. Okay, so you can have a structure with 3, you just have to rezone. You can do that today. You just have to rezone your property and call it multi-residential.
Okay, but working backwards on
Your
your
dwelling.
comment about potentially not allowing 6 units, so. I thought the diagrams on the screen last meeting basically showed variations of a total of 3 dwelling units per, lot,
lot.
right?
Yeah.
So then, if you put 3 in one house, you still wouldn't be able to do 6 anyway, because there's just 3 in that one building. What I'm getting at.
Yes, I think both ways we're achieving the same goals. So we don't want so there's a dwelling and then there's your property. So if it's 3 units in one dwelling, that's multi-residential, but we're not considering three. You'll correct me, I'm sure, but we're not considering three different, like, so if you have two in the one plus a detached, that's not going to be multi-residential, it's gonna be the accessory dwelling unit.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I'm just,
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out, why we're restricting it to two for the primary.
Is that because there's an existing bylaw that we have to comply with?
Yeah,
Okay.
and trying to make it mesh in there, so, yeah. And if there's three, then you do have more building code, I do understand that there's more.
It changes class, yeah, it's
Yeah.
a small building, right?
Yeah.
And then there's limiting distance issues where perhaps the compensating construction has to be done, because then might not be permitted to be combustible construction and cladding, right? So,
That wouldn't prohibit anyone from doing a rezoning if the site could potentially accommodate that to achieve the same goal.
Right.
Right, so if somebody rezoned to multi-res, they could put three in their
In one
existing
structure,
dwelling.
yeah. Mhm.
And there is an existing bylaw, like the multi-res,
Multi-res,
yeah, okay.
So they're gonna have three in one building and additional?
No.
No, okay,
no,
three is the max.
yes.
Any other questions or comments on this section? Do we have consensus? I'm looking for. And I just actually, we're on it. Eric, any concerns on this?
What's the note?
Yeah, so it just relates more to kind of like strategic housing land supply, which, you know, rural townships don't have as much emphasis on them as, say, the urban counterparts, but we're all still required to be working towards the same goal of providing more housing. So it was just to say essentially that and if an additional dwelling unit is on the property, it shall not be considered a second primary dwelling on the same lot. However, but in terms of counting the number of dwelling units that the township is providing for,
Right,
it would be recognised as a separate dwelling unit, just not a separate legally recognised property or lot. That makes sense.
Yeah, it goes along with number 4, where we're saying that they are all collectively one single real estate entity. So you can't sell the primary and sell the detached separately,
Right.
because it's one parcel of land.
We'll go back to member Poisey, sorry, any concerns on this at all?
No.
And to you, Ken?
Nope.
No. And you, you're good to go? Okay, we're moving on to the next.
All right, so next, so add the following, so I got C here, I mean, the numbers of these can change, but it's the text that we're focused on right now. So additional dwelling unit attached, then the next one is additional dwelling unit detached, so we have separated these here as in terms of definitions. So an additional dwelling unit attached would mean a self-contained dwelling unit with separate kitchen and bathroom facilities within a single detached or semi-detached dwelling of this on the same lot that accommodates the primary dwelling unit.
I think, I'm not trying to belabor a meeting, but I'll just, everyone, everyone's good, general nod, okay, move forward.
And also at the following therefore, which is additional dwelling unit detached, and that means a self-contained dwelling unit with separate kitchen and bathroom facilities within an accessory building positioned within the rear yard or side yard of the same lot that accommodates the primary single detached dwelling unit, but does not include a boathouse.
General nods.
You know what, I'm gonna, I should say, let's bring the verse. But attached dwelling unit, it doesn't actually state, previously, we're allowing additional dwelling unit that is attached by one wall or whatnot, the verbiage says, right? That's not listed in here. It's just basically saying it's contained within. But if you build an additional dwelling unit that, is adjacent and attached by,
Yeah,
portion, does that fall out of this statement?
you're right. So I mean, that could be added to there just to clarify. There's two distinctions of attached additional dwelling units, if that's helpful. I mean, might have the word in that, but what is it? Just a fireproof partition wall on something like that? But it's,
are you talking like
Like
semi?
they have to touch one wall,
Yeah,
like what we had for secondary dwelling unit,
yeah,
which is the one below. So I could take that wording.
We could say within an existing or, somehow say, or a newly renovated, home that adds an addition too.
Extension.
Yeah, that is connected to the existing structure by new construction or renovated
Or
wherever,
existing.
right? I'm just saying, because it's like, previously, we're allowing something, so someone's gonna build an addition, and as long as it's attached. And I'm not sure what, we'll get to the variations, but like, if you start limiting, the variations, right now. Someone's gonna build an addition and they say, well, fine, if you can't allow three, because it's, multi-residential, then I'm just gonna disconnect it somehow, renovate this one and disconnect it, you know what I mean, like, basically separate it from this house. So then I can add one there. Like two in the first one, and then literally the second one is right beside it, right? But that, again, that's a more conversation too, because there's also,
Yeah, you're
questions.
limiting distance plus further verbiage is gonna dictate how far
That's right,
that third one can be from the other two,
that's right.
right?
So is this what you're looking for? If I added in, provided that one entire face of the addition is attached to the principal dwelling? I'm just taking the wording from the second,
Yeah,
part, or does
I-
that take it, okay,
I'm not pulling one way or the other, I just noticed that it's not listed, so then I'm potentially thinking, is there any kind of problems that we're changing them, like, so actually, here's a question then, the current. Is there anywhere in this document that states this supersedes anything that we have as an additional dwelling unit right now, so like. Now, when people say, I wanna get, ADU,
Mhm.
they're no longer gonna see what we currently have listed, right? Or are they gonna still be able to see that and this?
so, but ADUs are not in our existing right now, so this will be the only bylaw that will address ADUs. So it's listed nowhere else.
Okay.
Is secondary.
That's right, yeah.
Right.
Without
They were
taking
called
out-
And then-
That's what I mean, the secondary, this supersedes,
Right, so they'll merge, like when they're both done, we will merge the housekeeping bylaw into this.
yes.
Yeah.
So does
We'll
this
make
have to be the entire face of the addition and half or?
You tell me.
That's a good question. Well, listen, people can get clever, right? You can do a breezeway and connect the two buildings that way with an arch and then. Separate it that way, is still one structure, right? So. That's kind of why I'm asking from that perspective, right? If you need them attached, someone could easily do a breezeway or even a,
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's more expensive, and it's
sure,
not as energy efficient
Yeah.
as patching, right?
yeah.
So I don't think we'll get that.
But they could,
Okay, yeah.
yeah.
We'll certainly visit that in the wording.
And is the committee wanting an entire face? Do we need to settle on that? Is it maybe there's different
More than
wording
50%.
like that
Just to-
of one face? Okay, what are we looking for? Just bit of direction here.
I think the only reason why I'm bringing it up and making it a bigger conversation is because, like the first point here about having, 2 units, right? So there's that potential of just trying to use your creative sense to,
Sure, that's what it's all about, sure.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
haven't we already limited how many are on one property anyway? Like how many, your primary and you're only allowed how many additional two?
Yeah.
So no matter which way they go, if it's two, why does it matter? If it's no more than the max.
well, so in the rural areas, people have the space and they could just, do three, build 2 additional structures and then have, secondary and third units, but if you're in the hamlets and you have to abide by coverage. And we are not permitting 2 additional units in one structure, then people will say, fine. But the only way I can do a third one on my property, because I'm constrained by setbacks, I'm gonna do an addition and I'm gonna connect it with a breezeway. Or not connect it, depends on, again, coverage, so it's just, we're dealing with. Rural and urban, and that's gonna be the biggest, we're trying to make sure that everything's covered. But I mean, like you said, coverages, lot coverage, setbacks,
Lot
limiting
coverage is
distances.
gonna limit you in the hamlet, right? So
Yeah.
you won't be able to put a breezeway, whatever, and then it complicates fire separations. It's
Yeah.
not energy efficient, it costs you more money because it's an extra foundation,
Yeah,
extra walls.
okay, I'm good with this.
Yeah, we're good with as it reads now? Or do you
With-
wanna, like as it reads here, no?
Do you want the
Or
entire
are
face?
we-
Does it have to be the entire face, like,
No.
because
No.
you might have it jut out or something,
Yeah, like I'm.
the design or something.
A shared deck between, I don't. know.
You see that on the highway, where there's a house, there's a deck, and then there's another house. I've seen
Shared
that on
deck.
the highway.
Yeah.
So they can all be joined. Lot coverage would play into that for sure,
I'm just wondering,
That's the big one, especially in the hamlet.
but not in the
Right.
rule.
So just
Um,
take out the word entire, just provided that one face of the addition is attached to principal dwelling.
It,
It
yeah,
doesn't even matter, you know what, it doesn't matter because you can build a firewall and that's a separate building right there. Right?
Yeah, so if you start playing with the faces, then you got a corner of less than 135 degrees, so that has to be rated. There's windows there.
Yes.
A lot of.
So if we just take out the word entire, will that be sufficient? Or do we just say they don't have to touch?
Just
Well,
one
they have
face.
to.
One face, maybe.
Okay,
one face.
Or even like if you say an attached, so additional dwelling unit attached. Means that a self-contained dwelling unit with, you know, the things that you need, but within. Single detached or semi-detached dwelling of the same lot. As constructed, renovated, or, you know. Because. People can make an addition, just even like a couple rooms, because they don't have enough on the main floor, and then they can do an adjacent one, right, or, so. As attached, reconstructed, right, like, so basically, when it's finished, it's part of the same house, that would consider it attached.
Construction renovated or altered.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for.
so does that go where I have this? Is that where how you would read it?
Yeah, so rather than
As
saying.
constructed? Oops.
Rather than saying that, you know, connected by one wall, that ship has sailed, I think. And just say that
Renovated or altered.
it is considered to be attached. After construction is completed, that it's part of the same building. Does that make sense or not?
It's a continuing within a support.
Considered attached. Yeah, so.
It's a bit more flexibility to
Renovated.
the design or circumstances or conversions. There's odd little outbuildings here and there that could be attached.
because it's saying within a single detached or semi. As constructed, renovated or altered.
And we would lose the one face.
Yeah, so then we would take this out.
It's good in the sense that it brings it back to the principal dwelling, like you're saying, certainly for the hamlets, and it helps to contain that development a bit, prevents the spread, so.
Do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I have thoughts. Yeah.
Pretty sure.
The way it was previously written is to try to merge two dwellings together and have the same front and backs type of setbacks, because now if you propose to construct one and it juts out further than the existing, now you're encroaching in the front. Or you complicate things with corners with fire separations. So you could literally, the way we're writing it now, you could literally overlap the house by 6 inches and. You know, have a zigzag type of effect with buildings. So they're trying to say like a construct like a duplex, right?
Yeah.
Like virtually the same footprint, but doubled over or a certain percentage over.
See, I'm not worried about the limiting distance or, you know. Because it's up to them to, you know, hire a designer and do all that, right? And up to you to make sure that it's up to code, but.
Yeah, it's doable, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm happy with the general conversation that's going. I mean, it's, we'll just enforce the rules when they're made.
Yeah.
To go back what it was before and that's it.
Well, I mean, the two examples taken, the attached and detached, were borrowed from elsewhere, so they have been approved and have been utilized in the council, so.
Yeah, if we go back to what it was, then it still states that it's connected, right? And so connected means it's attached, and I'm okay with that too, because at the end of the day, you know, it has to be connected for it to be considered an attached dwelling unit.
So we're going back to with provided that one face, or are we going back to just that it accommodates the primary dwelling?
I did
I
like
think-
the additional words that Jason put in those to give a bit more clarity around the circumstances in which that
It
ADU
just- It
might.
gives kind of people a little more variance if they just need that little extra within the building structure. Gives them a little more play if they had to.
okay, so wait,
But are we making it that you can't do an addition?
Sure you can.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can, yeah.
yeah. So it's just like sometimes they're, depending on the lot, maybe they gotta go out a bit more. They can't go within the contents of the footprint of the.
I think it's to
present
limit the size of the proposed building, right? Because if you do like overlap, like let's say a foot, then you've got a 1,200 square foot home. I could overlap a foot, build a 10,000 square foot home, and 90% of the face is out on its own. So I think it's to keep it aesthetically pleasing type of thing.
is there any? Is there any way to talk about, it has to be connected internally? So it could be like a level door, but then you're guaranteeing at least some level of more connection than.
There's a fire separation there.
Yeah.
So whichever way it's
Fire.
you can accomplish it with the building code.
Right.
It's doable anyway.
Right.
It's just more of a zoning thing and a look, right?
So what if I just added the words after to be considered as attached with by one face? Or by a face?
With a minimum of. Every
Right?
time we get to that,
Well, that's why-
never mind.
50%,
Yeah.
did we hear 75?
Yeah.
Or a face?
Well, that's why I was.
Well, our face would be the entire face.
Yeah.
I was to read that.
That's true.
Who started all this?
Our face. would be-
I
Yeah.
did, well, no,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, when you do say,
Yeah.
you know, once it's constructed, renovated or altered, it's considered to be attached if it's basically connected to the building, if it's part of the building, right? So if you renovate, but you're attaching it, then this dwelling unit is considered attached. It's not a standalone because you've attached it, so. Yes, maybe we're just beating it to them too much, but if it's attached, it's attached.
It's attached, I guess.
And then
I
as long
understand what you're
as you meet
saying,
the
like,
building
Yeah.
code.
we might end up with two houses like this,
Mhm.
but I mean, what's the difference? I guess they could do this and it would be legal. Cause if it's not touching, then it's just an additional dwelling. Not,
Yeah, or
Yeah.
they literally,
Yeah.
their setbacks can be so tight that they have to do something, because sometimes you get these weird
Yeah.
lots, right? And
Yeah.
they have no choice but to do that.
Three lots, yeah.
Yeah, so
I don't.
I wouldn't restrict the length of wall they need, because then you're basically saying
Mhm.
you're 6 inches short, too bad.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I don't
The
know what.
majority of the face of the.
Anyone else? I'd say as long as it's connected.
Connected would be considered two. Connected anyhow would be, that's the two units. They could still have an accessory. Or a third. not
That's right.
attached,
Detached.
Yeah, yeah.
And then part of that discussion could also be if we're gonna limit the percentage of the addition, right?
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
So,
what page is that on?
other than-
know.
other than-
We'll get there. We're still on page one, I think, so.
And It's pretty much the same conversation that the three of us have had as we've been trying to go along. Like
Well,
there's
it's-
so many things to think about, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So are we just putting a period after attached and we're good?
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
good.
I'm good.
I'm good, yeah. I mean, listen, if the public have significant concerns, there's opportunities for feedback too, right?
Lots,
There's
yes,
lots
yes.
of opportunities, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Somebody might come forward with better ideas than we have.
Mhm.
Okay, so moving on, so next would be to add the following, so the second half of this comment, like the additional. Dwelling unit detached, so did I read the definition for this already? I can again. Means a self-contained dwelling unit with separate kitchen and bathroom facilities. Within an accessory building positioned within the rear yard or side yard of the same lot. That accommodates the primary single detached dwelling unit, but does not include a boathouse. Any comments on that?
Is it gonna be later on, the requirements that it achieves to become a ADU? Because you don't mention laundry.
Yeah, so this is just the definition.
Okay.
This is
Okay.
just definition.
Yeah.
So the way the zoning bylaw is, there's definitions and then there's general provisions and then there's zone specifics.
Yeah.
So we're just still in that definition piece.
Just say under 3.4 5.18, all ADUs will be required to have their own laundry services.
Yep.
Under that.
Okay, general consensus on this? Okay, move forward.
Perfect. So next would be to Gina's point before, to delete the following, which would be dwelling secondary. So that's what we would have categorized these as previously, if you like. So it means a self-contained dwelling unit. Well, I don't need to read it if we're going to
Yeah.
delete it.
Yeah.
Everybody okay with deleting that to
Yeah.
replace the other two? All right. So add the following. F is hunt camps. So this means a single story building or structure with a maximum total floor area of. We have got insert here because we've had some discussions previously in the last meeting. We talked about maybe limiting that to 399 square feet. We did a little bit of digging around. We see that our neighbours at Chisholm Township have 600 square feet as the upper limit, I believe. So I'd say that's the range we're talking here, and really it's just a matter of what we're comfortable with. Where staff, I suppose, would lean towards the 399, but we're not here to kill all development. So, any perspective on this?
Is as soon as it goes to 400, it is considered a. What is
That's
that?
the minimum size that you require for a cottage. 400
Right.
is,
And it would make it easier for just for categorizing, right? What properties there are out there and managing of those on sets and stuff. So,
when
I know with a hunt camp, let me tell you, some of the guys with their gear and gals,
Mhm.
even getting it in a 600 square foot with your gear, your food, your all that stuff. So
they could still have an accessory structure though, no? On fun camp,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah. And then they would build instead of categorizing as a hunt camp, you can build anything.
Yeah,
and
you can
still
build a
hunt it.
cabin.
You can build a
Yeah.
cabin and still
Mhm.
hunt out of it.
Yeah.
400 is the minimum for a, sorry. one more time,
Cottage,
For cottage.
807 for a house. So
So,
one of the
yeah.
concerns, just to kind of give an idea on what we were talking about when we were trying to think of what square footage it would be. So a hunt camp is a seasonal dwelling. One of the reasons that we started this entire process is because we do have people who are living in their seasonal dwellings, but they're permanently living there. So that's one of the things that we're trying to solve. So if we create a hunt camp that can be very large, are we just perpetuating our problems? So how do we, and it's really hard to enforce once you start that. So once people start living in there permanently, it's very hard to enforce that. So we're trying to look at ways that we can use the rules to still allow the use and still allow the activity, but not create more of a problem than what we have. So if it's a hunt camp specifically would be limited to this, but you could still build a cabin, which doesn't,
Hunt out of it.
and hunt out of it.
what's the current zoning bylaws say for hunt camp?
If they're not allowed. There's
No,
no,
like
there's
the
no
private, does it
provisions.
say anything for the private camps? I was reading something about private camps are allowed. And I'm,
Well, there's private clubs that are allowed in the
Yeah.
rural area on large tracts of land, but it doesn't speak It doesn't speak to hunting.
But, oh,
Does it
What-
speak to
why?
size?
No, there's no size.
Okay,
yeah,
Under the
Club, is that
rule,
incorporated or something like that?
well, that's, yeah, that would be the definition in my mind, but,
yeah,
yeah.
we're trying to add in this.
Seven, you were gonna.
I was just gonna say, the private club it means a social, athletic or recreational club located on private lands and not operated for profit and includes the premises of a fraternal organization. That's the current
Just
definition.
now, I need a definition of fraternal organization.
Yeah, are we allowed to have school?
tell us, like, there's so much of grandfathering,
Legal non-compliance or.
not, yeah, legal non-compliance. Who's the expert on that? Like, what's going,
Poorly.
like, it's just kind of nice to know what direction do you plan on going with, things that exist, like, if someone has a private club and there was no, they're in compliance because it was from a long time ago. Like, it was prior to the passing of the bylaw, correct?
Yeah, I would say if they got a permit to put a private club up and they have it signed off by the municipality, well, have at it.
Yeah, but
Great.
maybe, the thing is, we have to look, maybe a permit wasn't required back then. So
So it
how,
was
but like,
pre,
what's the
like,
history? You must have
1970?
a big history book of, because first you have to
It's
prove.
not quite as detailed as you would hope.
Oh.
Sadly, we've been looking.
So then,
It's case by case, property by property.
Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, that's
Yeah.
the thing, you have, they could have been in compliance when,
fair
there's a
point.
lot of old history here in
Yeah.
Bonnfield, so it could have existed, before.
I've seen where people have brought us in pictures because so they bring in pictures of the properties from 1960s. And it's like, here's my grandfather, here's the property, and it's like, clearly that was there. And it hasn't been altered since then. So it's when it gets altered that's when they would have to, not that they have to go back, but they do have to, still comply with the rules. They can't encroach further on
Yeah.
setbacks or anything that we have now.
Yeah, you can't go after them for building permit.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, because I mean, you make a good point. I mean, in order for something to be grandfathered in or whatever, at some point, legal non-compliance, at some point it had to be legal. Right, so you can't legal non-comply something that's never been legal. But if it predates, which I don't know when was the first bylaw brought in? That would have spoke to.
well, for zoning, we use the year 1990. I don't know what you use for building code.
Building code, I think it depends on when the municipality adopted the code. I think some of the municipalities it was in the early 70s. So there's certainly some that predate that. And they're grandfathered in as long as they don't make any improvements. But there are some that were built not that long ago. That never had a permit,
Mhm.
right?
It's tough, because whose discretion are we gonna use to make the determination? That's the problem with these things, right? You'd like to leave it to no discretion, but. Whose discretion are we gonna lean on and say, yeah, clearly that was there before, or it wasn't, or. Like, what is that element of proof we're looking for? Is it a picture? Is it a testimony? Is it an affidavit? Is it a?
Or sometimes it's just. From my work experience in land management, which is a lot, like sometimes just common sense had to prevail.
Sure.
So we do seek knowledge from residents that have been here for a long time. There's a few of them that I encountered and I got confirmation that it was, it's been there for 60, 70 years, whatever, right?
Mhm.
I think the challenge becomes, we have absolutely no problems with that. It's when people are trying to tell us that it's been there for 7 years, and we know it's been there for 10. But because we had the gray zone over here that we've allowed somebody with 70, and they're trying to tell us it's been there for 70. Now, the element of proof is all of a sudden on us, and it shouldn't be. We have to prove that they've been there only 10 years. Well, that's the tough part, right? Shifting that onus to us is not a good place to put a municipality in. I'm just like, I could only imagine that's when you're standing on
I'm talking
Yeah.
like this is like a whole bunch of things, I'm not just
Yeah,
putting it on.
I think you make a really good point. I'm trying to figure out, like, you make a great point. How do we figure, like, it's a puzzle we need to figure out to try and balance the needs of like reasonability and protection of our staff to be able to enforce appropriately where needed if somebody is.
And
Perhaps not being
impact gives
executed.
us quite a bit of information as well. There's I've seen reports that dwellings were constructed in 1920. Impact has the history, right? So
Yeah, we could be talking about a cottage,
sure,
any type of dwelling.
yeah,
Permanent home.
Yeah, we,
that's what they
right
do.
on us as we, it's eye opening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
All right, I'm sure we can return to that.
Oh, and I
context
like
of
that. fishing.
Yeah,
So are we leaving it at 600? Are we putting the bill at 400? Square feet?
I will,
for everyone, but.
I will look, does anybody have an informed opinion that they'd like to share first? Cause we're gonna go around the horn and pick a number here, so.
Well, if the cottage, that's 400,
So you're gonna say
399.
399, okay, thank you, 6.
I'm going 6 to 8, just because I know guys that not here, but when they go, they're in groups of 12.
Right.
Like my brother's gang and.
Well. I mean, there's not a tie at this point, so I don't even know if I vote.
Yeah.
'cause
Well, maybe-
it doesn't- yeah.
So maybe 600 would be the compromise then, could it be consistent with Chisholm?
Because the neighbors
I-
have 600, well,
I am, sorry, what were you gonna say? I'm fine with 6, to be honest. I know that it gets a little gray into the other, but. I'm sure we are rural, we are, like, I would like to actually respect the fact that people hunt in this area. We could be encouraged. 600 square foot isn't crazy. I'm fine with 6, so.
I'm fine with that, because my 8x10 is okay, Chisholm.
There you go, yeah.
Okay.
Do we hear 8?
Yeah. Whoa.
80 square feet.
Yeah.
So 600?
Yeah, 6. Listen, again, I look
You wanna
forward
go
to.
Okay.
Yeah. I look forward to public input on this, like, our goal, and the reason that we're trying to like hammer this out tonight is our goal is to make it in time for what is our town hall meeting.
Yeah.
Which, if it's like our last one, it's an opportunity to listen and get feedback, so.
Well, maybe if we go 600, there's an opportunity for people to comment there, like you say,
Absolutely.
or, through the
Well,
course.
wait.
Shall we?
I'll go wait.
I won't.
Now we have a time.
20 by 30, that's pretty big.
Okay, so the public gets to decide.
I can go back down to 4. Cause I'm trying to compromise and be like, okay, I get it. I'm trying to do 6, which is fair, but.
That's good.
I emailed, my opinion was that there shouldn't be a limit on that, but. So I'll go wait if on the record.
Fair enough.
On the record, and then we have a tie, so.
We'll have to change the definition of a cottage.
The danger is if you go too vague, why should you have to comply with a large portion of the building code? Why do I need a furnace? Why do I need an HRV? Why do I need power? I'm not gonna get any of that, and I'm gonna build eight or unlimited square footage.
Yeah,
And,
but they don't, but a hunt camp doesn't need an HRV and doesn't
No.
need.
doesn't need anything.
Yeah,
But if you go, like, so let's say I propose to build a 1200 square foot house, and then you tell me there's no limit on a hunt camp. Well, all of a sudden I'm building a 1200 square foot hunt camp, and I'm gonna cheap out, no furnace, no HRV, none of this, none of that.
well, I think that,
There's the danger, right?
Well, you
And then
won't-
you can't police if the guy's in there 365 days a year.
but you're gonna request a building permit for these hunt camps, right? Right, so when you request that building permit and they can't get a septic and they can't get a well, then you can't.
They don't need it.
You don't need
No,
it.
that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So if they don't need it, then they can't live in it because it doesn't classify
But
as.
they will.
No, but they will is the
Well,
problem.
that, if they will or if they don't, that's where I think that,
You can't police it.
yeah, we can't police it, which is fine. Listen, go to North Bay and how many homeless people are there, go to Toronto, like we have a. I'm sorry, I have to swear, but like, I won't swear on camera, but this is a joke right now, right? We have people living on the streets here, so if a couple guys, you know, wanna hang out in their hunt camp for a couple months, that's a different story. If they reside in there full year, yeah, I agree with you, there's gonna be safety things there, right? But we're talking about the size of the structure, and they won't get a septic and water, so then it'll still be classified as a hunt camp. And if they just choose to live in that hunt camp, well, then that's between Trudeau and them, because they chose to live there because they can't afford a house in Canada. That's kind of my take on it, right? Like, we're talking about the size of this structure and not the you know, the pandemic of homelessness in North, you know.
I'm just thinking of, like, we go on fishing trips and that. And I'm thinking of the cabins that my husband and I stay in. They don't have any water or their outside toilets and, but they're quite, by the time you put in a kitchen table and chairs and your bunks, like, it doesn't take much for even 4 people, because what's 800?
Square feet in terms of size.
Yeah.
Um,
What's
It's close to
Matthew,
75 meters.
is it 20 by
It's really with
No.
20 by 40? Or whatever.
What even,
Dimension.
620 by 30, that's
Yeah.
not small, that's pretty big.
Yeah, that's a pretty big.
Yeah.
Bigger than lots of the houses in Bunch.
Mhm.
This room's 14 feet wide. By 4, 8, 16, almost 16, 17, 18. So it's at least double this. You're close to
More.
more. It's not a small hunt camp.
Should we go with 600 or 800? 600 might be safer. It's still quite a generous provision. It's consistent with the neighbours. It's
Somebody questions, well, the neighbors have 600, so.
Okay, we'll go around the horn, we'll. See where we got Eric.
600.
8.
8.
8.
Okay, I'm gonna say 6, so,
2.
yeah,
Oh,
there is
We
no
have
vote
no
there.
okay.
That's the problem when we're short one member tonight, because we would definitely not be in a tie.
So why don't for the, well, no, the council, I have to put in something.
And I have another question.
Can I undertake to, well, this is recorded, the mayor can actually watch it. Can I ask her for her opinion and although it's not an official vote tonight, we could, like, if she feels comfortable with the 8, we'll put in 8 and then it'll, like, if
I think, yeah, I think that.
she's comfortable with 6, it'll be 6, but then obviously, as we all know, I mean, council will have a.
The last one.
Yeah, I think that because this is not a final discussion, we're still gonna be probably, you know, discussing maybe over email before this draft gets released. I'm guessing, then, yeah, the mayor should have a vote for that too.
So, yes, there'll be some discussion, but we're gonna be hopefully passing a motion tonight that this
almost-
bylaw will be going forward to council, because it needs
For
a first
Tuesday.
and a second reading before it can even be spoken about
Yeah,
publicly.
yeah,
or
we
like,
could do that
before
with
we
an
receive public
asterisk.
comment.
That's
We
almost
can do that
not
with an
fair,
asterisk if there's
Mayor.
like maybe a couple items that need to be addressed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough position for the mayor for sure,
Yeah.
but I mean, if she was here, she would have had an opinion.
Mhm.
I don't have to put it on her, but you know,
Yeah.
ultimately as the chair.
Yeah.
You know, it would
So
be
there-
me doing the tiebreaker if there was one, so.
And those hunt camps, will they be registered somehow or?
And there's a.
It's by a permit, there's no
Mhm.
registry.
Add something, if you were in the Muskokas. Because it would be also hunt camp, fish camp, and woodland retreat.
The heck's a woodland retreat?
Yeah.
For the
Cabins.
gatherers, the hunters and the
Cabins.
It's
gatherers,
a cabin in the woods.
hunting our shaga and mushrooms.
All right.
and
Wow.
Fiddleheads.
Yeah, for
and-
sure, that's a thing. Okay, so please leave it highlighted for now,
Yep.
if the mayor is comfortable making a decision or not.
It's been highlighted.
otherwise you can agree at 700.
Yeah, now, it has to have something, can we and this is a procedural question, sorry, I don't have the answer to it. Can we leave it at 6 or 8 as recommended by the committee and then? Count, like. Put the pressure on council to pick?
Yeah, because
or-
we want council to review the bylaw on the 10th. So we could ask them to make that call. I mean, they will have this to have the review, right?
Right,
So I can put 6 to 8 and it's still draft until council sees it, so.
and can
Because council has to approve the draft,
yeah,
Mhm.
we have to.
so what does it matter, right?
Yeah, I mean, council as, as I, kind of,
Helps create
last
it.
meeting, I reiterated kind of the process, which is. Our job is to really put our thoughts into this, and then council. Will accept it as is, make amendments. Reject it as altogether, yeah, that's how that works, so.
Okay,
Because it like.
Go on.
Is that what she's doing?
just,
Okay.
yeah, 600 to 8.
And we'll leave it
Mhm.
highlighted as a. A point we couldn't cover, yeah, it's unfortunate that we're an even number tonight, hopefully this is the only time it actually happens. We're just quick, 'cause all right, well. Yeah, sorry, Jan.
At this point. Just talking about dates.
Yeah.
As you know, I sent an email, I was, just wondering about how this is all gonna come, because it's through Christmas, we're at Christmas time right now. A lot of people aren't paying attention right now, a lot is going on in their lives, they're busy and that sort of thing. And it just seems like we have kind of an aggressive timeframe. Like from a point of view of the time of year, that sort of thing,
Yeah.
like.
It certainly wasn't
Posting-
deliberate.
No, but you know
It's
what
mainly
I'm
'cause,
kind
like,
of saying.
We've had the busy construction season and then this is slows down a bit on this winter period, so it's time to kind of like look more in-house at projects like this, so it's.
Yeah,
Doesn't
but
always,
like people aren't really paying attention this time of year
Yeah,
and how,
it'll be February by the time it actually goes to public, right?
Well, I
mean,
think
it'll
our
be public
last,
Meeting, but when is our town hall meeting?
so
Whoop.
if we
Oh,
had,
is that my
no,
fault?
that's me.
if tonight we decide that we're ready to present this to council as a draft, getting that there may be a few things that are not, the draft would go to council for January 10th, December 10th, I'm sorry. And then we can go back to, we can post it from there. So when, as soon as in the new year, we have to give 20 days notice to the public. That's a requirement. So if we had the town hall meeting on January 27th, we could do all of the notice as soon as we come back in January. And then we have the town hall on 27th where we can present it, people could provide input, and then it could go to council for the first week in February.
For the third reading, but I'm just wondering, like, if people. You know. Kind of, aren't aware as much as we might like them to be. That when could they be a delegate to try to get on a council meeting? Just to say their piece.
Well, typically, when you do a zoning bylaw, so think of it as whenever we do a zoning bylaw or even a consent, if somebody, you have a public meeting.
Yeah.
Somebody would come to the consent if they disagreed with the consent. And then you would make the decision, then it would go to council, but there's no opportunity to delegate after because you have to say it and the decision gets made at the table and then at council.
But
So the public meeting would be the 27th, and that's where everybody could make their comment. We could adjust as whatever council says from what they feel from the public meeting, from discussions that we have, and then that next draft goes to council.
So now
So
just,
it's,
sorry, just for clarity, when was our first meeting that was on? YouTube, how long ago was that?
12th of November?
no, that was our meeting.
Yeah.
No, our meeting was the 12th of November. I put a report to council, I believe in October.
Right, so, I mean, as
Yes.
far as, public awareness, if there's one thing I've learned is,
Mm-hmm.
the 98% of the people really don't pay attention to all of the great work that we're sitting here doing. You'd like to think they'd be riveted by it, but unfortunately, it seems that they're not. But as council, I mean, I advocated that it actually come to committee, which is actually providing that much more opportunity for people to watch it on YouTube than they would have had if council was to just deal with this with the general bylaw. So I struggle with it with the point of that it's not enough opportunity, that it's too close to Christmas. I mean, it was first talked about in October. Then all of a sudden it'll be too close to summer vacations and it'll be too close to something else is my challenge. I mean, unfortunately, the wheels have to keep turning for us to be able to, like, this isn't the only thing we're doing. Like, there's lots of stuff that we've got to get going. So I struggle with it's too fast, but you know, that's just maybe I have a general nature of wanting to get things done, but yeah, October, November, December, January, February, March, or February. Yeah, I mean, it's half a year that we will have been discussing this.
Plus, we have to say that none of these bylaws are restrictive in nature to what's permitted now. They're very pro-development.
Right.
They're opening up
Right.
development. So it's not something that's negatively impacting.
No, but I'm
what's
just saying to
currently-
have their kind of comments and, because I often wonder, you know, well, that's another day of talking about, you know, putting it on your social, your Facebook page, the township Facebook page, the agenda, or.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of thing, because it's hard, sometimes people don't go on the town, we've talked about this before, they don't, the township site. And sometimes that's what, I was, trying to say, if they just see the agenda, they might not really be clear in what it is. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm just, I don't know if anybody else has gone on and you've kind of questioned, oh, I wonder what they're talking about there.
I think I'm gonna basically echo Jason's sentiment. Most people don't pay attention. I've gone out and I've talked to people on my own and said, I'm a part of this committee, this is what's
Yeah.
being discussed, and I've asked for their opinions and they give their opinions, but most of the time, people don't pay attention. I'm here, to be honest with you, because I went on my own and checked the website. I actually applied for your position about, 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I came in second to Sabrina. So, I mean, if people want to know, they're gonna know,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes,
And I'm just gonna say, like, really, it is about 3-4 months before this goes through and people have the opportunity. And I've echoed it to everyone I talked to. I said, this is what's happening. If you guys have a voice, come out and or tell me and I'll voice it. You can't, you can't, what do you want, a billboard on the side of the highway? Like, you can't really. If it interests them and if it's, they're, and
Directly
as you
affect-
said, it's not restrictive at all. This is actually a good thing. We're
Oh, yes.
putting forward a document that most people will probably say, oh, awesome. Now we got some more play here, right?
I'm not saying it's not awesome, I'm just, that they're made aware, and this is the first time that we're talking about it, like, and you've talked to to people saying, like, they're aware and that sort of thing, so.
So it's not the first time we've talked about it. We've had one meeting prior to this, and council actually spoke about it.
No,
received
I meant, us talking about people being,
right.
not what
Yeah.
you're saying, that
I see.
it's been on.
And I would just say, if not too long ago in the past, was not everything recorded and kept on YouTube forever. This entire conversation is being recorded, it's probably live. For context, it's not that people are trying to be lost in the nuance of context. They can actually go on and watch a video of very detailed discussions and in a very open forum. So, and the other piece I would just say is the reason that there is a council and the reason that there are committees is to show the leadership, to be able to bring forward these things. Your opinions matter. Let's have that conversation. Of course, there's opportunity for additional public feedback, but that's why you're here, is to bring forward these types of, and to represent the constituents, right? So that's why, that's
I
your
just
voices
thought
matter
if
here.
there
So.
was any better way of getting it out there.
If
That's all.
there, yeah, it's tough. We're a small market, right? I mean, I don't know. Sure, we could put everything on our Facebook page, but then I can guarantee you, and people will stop looking at our Facebook page because we will drown them in stuff that is not very interesting. But, yeah, anyways, I think our website, the YouTube channel, the fact that, you know, there's opportunities for people to engage in public forums. I think we're being more than open and transparent with
I'm not
six,
saying open and
five
transparent.
months of opportunity for people to provide feedback to any one of us. They know the committee, they see us on TV. If anybody called the township, they would provide information for people to get in touch with you. So that's, yeah, there's opportunity. I struggle with knowing what else to do. If people aren't engaged, they're not engaged. If people are engaged, they're gonna watch the website like Ken did, so. I guess that's my,
It's just asking another way of
yeah,
getting the message out because, you know, it's like, okay, what, you know, what could
Yeah.
we do to get it, to get people engaged or
Yeah.
knowing that this is coming up, so
yeah,
if you're interested,
100%.
yeah,
Newsletters go out to every mailbox, every single mailbox in the municipality, so.
Not maybe.
Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah,
with the pause of the.
Generally.
Yeah.
Generally.
Which people read.
But they
thoroughly
still
on
don't.
Friday when it gets delivered, and then I see it at the landfill on Saturday, but clearly I'm sure
Yeah.
they've read it, cover to cover on the Friday,
Yeah.
for sure. So, okay,
All right.
On that for my rehab walks.
Yeah.
The mailbox in back.
all right.
But other than that, is everybody happy with the wording of F hunt camps? And-
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, so we're taking that one off.
thank you.
All right, so add the following, G shipping container. So this means a prefabricated structure originally designed for or capable of being mounted or moved by rail, truck, or ship by means of being mounted on a chassis or similar transport device and now utilized for accessory storage. This definition includes the terms CCAN, disused rail car, and storage container, having a similar appearance and characteristics to a shipping container. For anybody who tried to circumvent the rules. Any thoughts about shipping containers?
No, we're still on the definition, so I'm okay with the
Yeah.
definition, yeah.
Okay, next to add the following, tiny homes. So even though we're not specifically at this stage looking to include a provision for tiny homes, it's important to recognize that it's a term that is used, and I believe it's crept its way into the building code now as well as a term. So it was important to kind of mention that here. And that means a structure consisting of one dwelling unit between 188 square feet or 17.5 square meters, as we're moving to metric, and not more than 400 square feet or 37 square meters as regulated under the Ontario Building Code, Division C, Section 1.11.
Sounds like a perfect hot camp. Just kidding, just kidding.
Yeah, under 400, that's it. Any comments on the definition of tiny?
Fine,
homes? No?
everyone, general nods, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Also add the following semi-detached dwellings, so that means two residential homes sharing a common center wall with a separate ownership. And that one's quite short, is that definition, but short and sweet. All right, so section 2,
You're good, yeah.
yeah. Rules and regulations to be observed. The following rules and regulations are to be observed in respect of any proposed new structures as described. So we'll go into them in detail now. Accessory, and this is building, structure, or use. So amend section 3.11.1 as follows. Do I have to read all this?
No, you can-
The red's the new, right?
Okay, yeah. So the additional text that we're including in the middle, sandwiched in this policy, if you like, is the applicant shall sign an agreement and obtain a building permit for a primary dwelling unit together with an accessory structure permit. There shall be a maximum limitation period, and we've put of between 18 to 24 months here, and that's to complete the primary dwelling unit. And should the primary dwelling unit not be substantially completed within that specified time frame, the accessory structure shall be removed. So, Mike, I don't know if you want to elaborate a bit more on the agreement that's in place or how this is working in practice, but
Yes, there would have to be a signed agreement, but we've left that 18 to 24 months open. I think it's kind of short. Well,
To complete construction?
to get substantial completion, sure.
So this is, for all intents and purposes, like, yeah, it's a shed or something that's put on just to store your tools. What would be, in your opinion, an appropriate amount of time for somebody to be able to construct a house from permit to occupancy permit?
Be up to 3 years, maybe.
Okay. And there has to be active
Yes.
construction.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Milestones, is there milestones that you look for as a CBO, or is there?
No, so limitation period of building code says 6 months, but we up north here, we give a year for substantial start.
Okay.
The building code says. So I mean, that would be up to you guys.
Right, so if you don't see it, like, you wouldn't be, well, if it's not dried in within 24 months, you're definitely not. Do you monitor that?
Yes, so the permit could be revoked, so there are some that. They've applied for the house permit and detached garage permit, then rather, which you have to, and detached garage is constructed, but the house. The permit's gonna be over a year and the house is not begun at all. So.
Right.
Are you gonna? To me, the accessory structure shall be removed, that's,
And that's a tough one, so.
if you build a garage and you put brick on the garage and all that, like,
Yeah, I know.
how are you gonna remove that?
Yeah.
Just from the planning perspective, so the provincial planning statement is emphasising, housing delivery again, and so I believe it's 3 years. This isn't there that the township has to maintain a housing land supply for that amount. So at least if it was, say, up to 3 years, then we could ensure that we're going to meet our housing projections.
Does anybody have any concerns if we were to change that to 36 months?
No,
No, so 36 months.
so what does an accessory structure permit look like?
Yeah, what does that say? Accessory building permit? Building permit, right?
Okay, but
So there's no plumbing, there's no heat, there's.
no, but what if that building, the accessory building is, let's say, doesn't need a permit based on the fact that it's smaller than 160, whatever, you still need an accessory building permit because it's prior to the house, right?
No, you wouldn't need a building permit because it doesn't require a building permit.
Okay,
Except
so
for
it's only
zoning.
if it's only, okay.
But
That's why, because I didn't, I'm thinking, when you said, building to put your tools in, well, if it's less than the 160. And they don't need a permit, they could just build that prior to building a house and store their.
Well,
But zoning wouldn't allow that, because zoning says you can't have any structures on the vacant land.
Okay,
so that's why the title is, we've added structure.
right,
As the first one says building, so
Right.
like you say, if you build
Yeah.
150 square feet, a shed, you can leave it there forever and never build a house.
now, what if they already know that the house is gonna get built and then they're gonna say, well, if I'm gonna build a shed. I'm not gonna build it during construction to take it down later on, I'm gonna build it so it says permanently, so can you? Is it that you get the permit and say, oh, I'm gonna build this first? So I can store my tools, I'll build the house, but this is gonna stay,
Oh, yeah, I can
Yeah.
say,
Okay.
for sure, yeah.
yeah, all right.
So the idea is that you don't get somebody building a great big shed and I'm gonna build a house and it never happens, right?
Yeah, no, I get that, yeah.
And they'd be submitting the plans at the same time, right, for the
Mhm.
primary dwelling and for the accessory. So we
Yeah,
have
so
that
they'd be
on file.
obtaining the permit at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if there's maximum size of the shed or?
No, so we've included in the term building or structure, right? So. Building is over 161 if it's used as a shed. So there's no. Limit really.
Then it comes down to 15% of the lot area.
50%.
Because there
Oh,
are
yeah.
accessory buildings that are used for buildings, right? Right now?
Right
There's
now.
a few.
Illegally, so.
Okay,
There'll be more.
any other comments on this? Gonna look for general consensus, we've changed to the 36 months.
So is it 18 to 36 or 24 to 36?
I think it's a maximum of 36, right?
Max,
Yeah,
Limited period of 36 months.
yeah, to a maximum of 2 months, 36 months, yeah.
All right,
Okay, and sorry, Gina, go ahead.
So accessory building that is the people could be living in, is that like the 161 square feet? Are you talking about cottages that are or
No,
hunt camps?
Cottage hunt camps is a different permit.
No, but saying people are living in them, are you your question? And
Accessory buildings.
yeah, that are, or is it more the other type, larger dwellings that aren't classified as
No,
Dwelling.
these are for sheds, for sheds, garages, whatever. So a hunt camp or a cottage would be permitted by itself on a property.
no, but you're saying people are living in sheds?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, well, so they'll come in and they'll get a permit for storage. And there's no size, so it could be that 20 by 20. And then they're just moving into that and they're never building a house.
Okay, so then when that then have to come, because it's only 400. They only need 400 square feet, so could they amend their permit, or you're saying they're under 400 square feet?
They're building, so they're getting their permit for the building use of a storage. So that has completely different requirements under the building code as opposed to a dwelling.
Right, okay. But they're not the 161,
They could
No,
be-
shed.
They could be whatever,
Yeah.
they could
no,
be-
but they're,
They
but
could be
yes,
100 square
Some of
feet.
them are the size of a house, but they're
yeah,
living in
yeah,
something that's built for storage.
okay, so it's not a little wee
Some are,
chicken coop.
some are.
Some
for
are.
sure, And some are bigger than you'd be surprised.
So most municipalities say that you cannot build any type of structure before the house because of that. Right? Because people build small sheds and before you know it, they're living in it, and if there's no wording in the bylaw to restrict it. Then it's difficult to
So somebody could potentially live in their.
Well, potentially, but
For
I'm.
36 months before, I mean, if we recognize that they're living in there, or we get complaints, I would imagine we're out enforcing that. Can't live in a structure that's not meant to live in. But they, even if they're sneaky about it, you come 36 months, we're gonna know that the permit's not closed. So then you would act, right? You would go in
Yeah,
and see them.
so you're gonna act on the ones where the house has never been commenced or was never
Right.
intended to be constructed. Then you got a shed by itself and it's been there for 4 years, right?
Mhm.
Then when you got wording in the bylaw, then you got the tools to act upon it, right?
Mhm. This is another question over above, talk about, say, homelessness, or is there any act that prevails that you like, that you can't send them off because they have nowhere else to go? Is
No.
there another act? I thought I read that somewhere.
No, so the building code
Or a
act, building code
homeowner.
act supersedes everything and there's regulations, what you need for occupancy.
Right,
There's a judicial ruling that municipalities can't take down encampments.
yes, well, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so that's a judicial ruling. It's still very much under appeal. I think we'll see where that lands. I don't think
Yeah,
that'll
yeah.
stick, so.
So I was just wondering if there was something because of the crisis we're kind of in that would also pertain to people living on their their very own.
Yeah, well, because the challenge is gonna be anybody who legalizes somebody to live in an unsafe. Because it's not up to code, they're accepting full liability if something negative happens, right? So. God forbid, the building catches fire and it doesn't have the appropriate structures in place. Yeah, you just, yeah,
Yeah, I was
Building
just
code.
wondering if there was
Yeah.
like a human rights.
No, no, there is not.
All right. No more comment on that one then?
No, I think we're everyone's comfortable.
Okay.
Okay, great.
So amending section 3.11.7 as follows. So should I read all that? I might need to make sense.
Sure, yeah.
When a lot is proposed to be used for more than one purpose, the lot shall be zoned for its primary purpose, and accessory uses shall be permitted, where the accessory uses are an integral part of the main use, are intended solely for the convenience of the people using the facility, and are in keeping with the character of the main use. Such accessory uses shall conform to, this is the new text, all applicable sections of the comprehensive zoning bylaw and this housekeeping bylaw. And in no case shall occupy more than, we put here 45% of the total area of any eligible lot. So the 45% lot coverage comes forward from some new regulations that we've seen, and the inclusion of the bit about the comprehensive zoning bylaw and this housekeeping bylaw is just to kind of tighten it up as a section.
Next question.
Well, I think our discussions on the 45% was saying that it's an accessory building. So there's one that says, you know, the one above that says an accessory building can't be more than 15%. So if we amend this to 45%, because additional dwelling units would be accessory use. So I think we were thinking that this could either be here or it could be under the ADU. Because do we want accessory buildings to just carte blanche be 45% or the 15%? Because 3.11 is still all about accessory buildings and use. So if we say, in no case shall occupy more than 45% of the total area of the eligible, you could have 45% of a lot, all accessory buildings,
But there has to be primary.
but there has to be a primary, so the primary then plus whatever to 45%, so we're saying you could do.
Restrictions based upon different zones.
Could,
Just want to get clarification on the word eligible lot, right? So the 45% is that calculated on 45% of the lot size, or eligible states that is when you, after the lot, you do your setbacks and then that's your eligible area of building. That's the 45%?
The 45% came from that regulation, right? About the dice
From the-
ceiling.
from the ADU regulation or the
Um,
accessory?
I think
No, so this is, I'm guessing this is lot coverage.
that's right. That's
Right.
where that
So-
figure came from.
So if you have a lot that, you know, this is this size, but once you apply your setbacks, it's actually where your text is that 45% calculated from your eligible building area?
Oh, that's a good question.
Or is it
Okay.
calculated from your lot?
The lot coverage.
Lot.
So the existing bylaw says 20. So where we have 45, this bylaw says 20% of the total
So it's
area.
45% of his entire piece of paper, not 45% of the
Right.
writing area.
Correct.
That's clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's-
45, so because the word eligible
Am I
kind of
right?
threw me off, right?
Yeah, that was added in later, but
45 too much?
it was
45 was,
literally changing the figure. Yeah.
I think 45 was meant for ADUs.
Then you don't have any,
Oops, sorry, Jim.
put your snow, so you put it on
Put
your.
your foot.
And maybe that's what we mean by
Okay, sorry.
eligible lot with ADU.
So this point is talking about accessory,
Yeah, it shouldn't
Right,
really
so-
be in
Yes.
this bit.
accessory uses, so it's talking about, you know,
Sheds, garage.
Yeah.
storage sheds, yeah, things like that.
Yeah,
So,
it's a more general provision rather than specific to accessory.
right, now also, I just want to get clarification on this, so if you have a chicken coop, if you have, you know, tractor storage that you do not necessarily need building permit for, that's applied to this 45%. That's accessory.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's a difference too, because when you're reading it, you're thinking, that, 45%, and like, someone's gonna say, okay, well, I'll just get a bunch of these, you know, building permits and do all these, like, small buildings, right? No, this is all coverage, sheds and
Any
everything.
structures, yeah.
Yeah,
And-
Not
okay,
necessarily a building, yeah.
yeah,
So the original is 20. We only put 45 in for eligible lots that would have ADUs. So we don't mean to have the 45 in there. I think 45 is a lot for accessory.
Mhm.
Unless we put for any eligible ADU lot.
Do we need to say lot? 45% of the total.
Yeah, but it's accessory though. It's not for the ADU.
Right.
So do we strike the 45% and leave that to 20? And then move 45 to ADU?
Yeah.
well, sorry, I'm just trying to think, like, where would this apply, right? But if someone has a rural property. I'm not talking about, you know, 100 acres, but just like, you know, a couple acres here, then, and if they have. Cause it says, so primary purpose would be residential, but then accessory uses shall be permitted where accessory uses are integral part of the main use, so. they wanna set up, they're like farming and they have all this stuff for sale, right? So now they're gonna, so basically, I'm just trying to put in perspective why the 45%. And if
Yeah.
it means anything to me or anyone else in
It's
the,
probably just not the best place to place it. It's just come from the new regulations, but it's got kind of merged in because the original language did refer specifically to a percentage and to refer to the word lots. So we were just playing upon the existing, but
Yeah.
it's almost like the whole that needs to be reconstructed or broken
Okay.
down.
So we'll-
Good catch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll strike out the 45 here.
Yeah, and now it's probably safe just to put it back 20% that it was, and then we can address the other matters through the,
And then we can take out eligible
bylaw.
because we don't mean ADU.
Correct.
Okay,
so just revert it to the existing,
Yeah.
20% for now.
Everybody's
So-
comfortable, sorry. Yeah.
So the 20% only applies to accessory buildings. Your storage sheds can only be 20%. That's not a garage. That includes your
Mhm.
garage and your woodshed.
Yeah, it's all of the
20
structures
20
beyond the
lots.
primary.
20 slots for them? For, have you been around with all our toys and?
So let me give you perspective. Let's say you have a normal small lot and you have a bungalow in the middle of the lot.
Yeah,
Your accessory building has to be behind the front face.
yeah,
So let's say the house is at 50%. That means if it was 45, 50%, you can cover the entire side and backyard with sheds. Right?
Yeah.
Look at it that way. So that's
Yeah.
why it's 20. So you have a backyard, not just sheds in your backyard. So 20, even 20 is it's good.
my husband will be mad if I agree to that.
And
He wants a lot of garages.
And again, the
Maybe this is how
45%,
you restrict all the
No, no,
expensive
we-
garages.
we don't often see where they exceed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They exceed it anyway.
and a lot of this,
Okay.
the provincial planning statement was geared towards Southern Ontario communities as well, not such generous lot sizes, so it's not
Right.
always applicable here, and we don't have to adopt that anyway so I'm glad that was caught
Yeah,
at this stage. But that said, like moving forward, it'd be nice to see more productive use of some of the rural properties, and if outbuildings can be connected to that, we'll put some more of zoning and planning that, but
Okay.
can return to that.
Everyone general consensus, we're good with, okay, here we go.
So if we can add a new section of 3.11.8 as follows, so shipping containers. The purposes of this bylaw, shipping containers, occasionally referred to as sea-can, disused rail car and or storage container, shall be considered accessory structures for planning purposes. Following provisions apply. Shipping containers greater than 161.5 square feet or 15 square meters of any size containing.
There should be an or right after the meters,
Okay.
or any size containers containing plumbing.
Oh, yeah. Containing plumbing or shipping containers attached to any other structures shall not be placed or constructed on a property except under the authority of a building permit and are subject to the requirements of the Ontario Building Code and applicable law. Point 2. No shipping container shall exceed 5 meters in height in any residential zone, nor be built within 2 meters of the main building in all zones. Point 3. In the rural areas where lot size and dimensions permit, a minimum landscape buffer of 30 meters should be applied around the perimeter of the property to ensure satisfactory screening of the shipping container. Exceptions to this rule can be met where alternative arrangements such as tree lines, fences, siding, or other architectural improvements have been proposed to and approved by the township that would be considered visually appealing. No comments?
in the rural
Okay.
areas.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just saying if it's a huge, large lot, nobody sees that.
That's what it says here.
Oh.
If there's trees that hide it, if you got it in the back 40,
Yeah.
nobody can see it.
But what if it's a old field?
It's kind of like saying, if it's more than 30 meters from the setback, then
Okay.
go ahead and do it, it's fine, it's permitted if it's under the size. If it's beyond that, consult us, let's talk about it, let's have a plan.
And that's where that word comes in, reasonable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So does, so the small containers, what dimensions are they?
8x20.
Cause was reasonable, might not be
So
reasonable.
that's what we're
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah.
This one?
They don't need a permit.
Small
Another
containers.
word.
Yeah, you don't need a permit.
What was that word?
Does that
Yeah,
create
it's only
sufficient
a-
flexibility that, yeah,
Absolutely, I like the word for the.
excellent. Okay,
Did you write that?
I did.
Yeah.
Well, we did, actually, they got it.
Oh, you can have it. Yeah.
You also put 45 up top, and you know.
How pro development
You're-
is that?
Yeah, a little down there, you're back up, you're doing okay.
Okay. So yeah, section 4, shipping containers will not be permitted within the shore road allowance, bordering any water body, and shall be positioned beyond the 30-meter setback over which the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority has jurisdiction and for which a section 28 permit would be required. Section part 5 to this. Shipping containers shall be rust protected by applying neutral and or natural colored paint to ensure their satisfactory design quality and visual appearance.
Yeah, those I saw that are painted, they look nice.
Yeah.
The other ones. That's so nice.
Any comments on that?
I just have a comment going back to the first one, where it requires a building permit for sea containers greater than 161. So
Here's an update for that.
okay,
I heard your statement last time.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't have this earlier to put on the website, but I sought some
I got one. I got
some
one.
advice from other municipalities.
I got one.
Oh,
So it reads as follows: a building permit is not required for a shipping container used solely for storage purposes where it is less than 161.4. So the 8x20s don't require it. Except if it's got plumbing. Where a permit is required, the following must be submitted for application to the town of Bonfield: elevation plans showing the full dimensions, width, height of the structure, foundation or mud seal detail plans, so right on the ground virtually. Site plan showing the location of the structure with setbacks, property lines, building, on-site sewage systems, etc. And a building permit application form. So then it goes on to say, an engineer is only required where alterations are being made to the shipping container. That is a shipping container that's over the 161.5. Including any new openings or adding anything to the structure where you join them with perhaps roof coverings or cover all buildings. Or to other buildings. And an engineer is not required where the structure is to be placed as is on a property, just the standards. CCAN. So that addresses that concern you had,
okay.
Where does
right?
it?
But this, so this is for, I understand this whole entire first part, but this second part. Applies to any size shipping
No.
container or only,
No, only one that's over 161.5. So if
Okay.
you want to modify an 8x20, it still falls under the size, so it's not required.
perfect, okay.
You wanna put a window in or something?
Yeah.
Cause you're using it as a chair.
You still-
That's good.
Except if you put plumbing in.
Yes, of course.
So it just needs a little wording for over 161, the following.
Yeah, the bottom part there,
Yeah.
I'll make adjustments to that.
So that'll be new wording.
But it could be, so because this is a 161, it's not, wouldn't be part 4, it would be part 9 still, right? So an architect can provide foundation for sea container over 161?
Not the structural, not if you do alterations to the structure.
Not alterations, like not if you're cutting openings, but if you are.
For the foundation for mud seals?
If you're leaning trusses on top, if you have 2 of them, let's say.
Yeah, it'd have to be engineered, because it's not prescribed in the code. And to your comment, I think you had made a comment that we should permit it. We do have a permit right now where there's 3 shipping containers that are gonna be married together
Perfect.
and altered. And they're done under direction of an engineer and an architect.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
so this would appear on our website, it's not to be embedded in this.
No, it's not to be
bylaw,
embedded in
just-
that, it's just a policy as a
clarity.
building official, I have to make policies there. There's gonna be other things that are considered too. So I've seen an issue where someone rented a storage container not far away. It's a commercial outfit that rents shipping containers for furniture, or whatever.
Mhm.
While he was constructing his dwelling, he stored his furniture in there, including a pool table. And the container was leaning backwards, if you will. And water got in, and those little air vents are not enough, right? And when he opened the door, there was mushrooms growing on everything,
Oh.
including his pool table.
So
So
expensive.
he sued, well, he was gonna sue the owner of the rentals place, but he had insurance, so his insurance covered it. So us as a municipality, if we issue a building permit on such a thing. Right, and let's say the guy, it's a rental outfit and he doesn't have insurance, then they're gonna come back on us, so.
Right.
Gee, so many considerations.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, general consensus on this as,
The colored paint, I have a
Okay.
problem with.
yeah, sure.
The only reason being is I've tried to paint something steel and I wish I would have never painted it. Like like say, some of the ones that, I've been looking at some when I drive by, sometimes I'm looking to see if I can see any. But even the rust, it's not rust, but that color, it might be an original color. That it's still blending in with the trees and depending on where they are. But say if you paint it, it's gotta be hard to get stuff to adhere to that. Because I'd be worried about it all starting to flake. I've had that happen with some steel stuff and.
So as a municipality, I think we should maybe look at potentially reaching out to some urban artists. And if you ever go to Toronto,
Yeah.
They know how to make it stick.
there's a few in North Bay, and I have this idea that's is holding in my back pocket, but if you integrate them and you say, paint a mural on the side of these sea cans, and then basically the township would give his name, he'd get business, and he'd come over and paint some nice waterfront scene on the side of your sea can, and everybody would be happy. Right?
Yeah, some I do agree, like it would be good to have a coat of paint, but then some that it might not be that, beige or whatever, I'd be almost inclined to leave alone. If it was all one solid.
So,
Gray or.
yeah, like, what if we were to say, although I take your point, and maybe this won't. But if it was a uniform color, like what I find not nice is when you drive past, there's that huge like Maverick sign or whatever it is, like all those big letterings, and it's just so like it's all lettered up. Like,
Yeah.
if we can just say like remove all that and have it generally uniform color, I guess I'm like save and accept. I guess like art is an interesting one because somebody's a vision of art.
Art.
But
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
when it's
that's
done
a
well,
satisfaction.
it's awesome for sure.
Yeah, that's why it's a satisfactory design and visual appearance, right? So
Yeah, looking at it now, there should be an or, if you wanna put the strap it and you wanna put vinyl siding or any type
Right.
of.
But I guess I'm just asking if it's already a uniform color. It's not rusted and, because I'm just thinking a couple years later, you might be in a bigger mess.
So I'm fine if it's a uniform color. Because the challenge is gonna be somebody's gonna, and I want it to be, if we're gonna do that, then no letters, like no. Like uniform color would mean you don't have big black letters all the way across it, right? So if you peel off the black letters, there you got a. Bright red container or a pink container and bright red letters because it hadn't faded in the sun, because then it's not uniform, but. Like I'm just trying to, like, if it's more than 30 meters back, I honestly don't care, like whatever, you can't see it. It's all the ones that like are gonna be in the hamlet that. Like, we're just gonna be dotted with these shipping containers, I would like it all possible to have them blend into the background as much as possible. And they don't blend in when they look like a billboard when you're driving down the street, right?
And you could say,
That's just the crux of.
Not for advertising.
so at the
No.
point it's painted or rust treated or however it's done, it ceases in effect to become a shipping container and becomes a pre-fabricated structure. So, to remove the letters would,
Right.
it loses its function as a shipping container.
But even some are gray and I'd hate to have to paint them because,
They look like they look.
yeah, so how do you define, you might not like the color rust, but my house is rust and I end up with the same color that may not like, or
Well, yeah, and that's fair, because I mean, yeah,
maybe
Again,
rust
it's-
matches, you know, the original.
what I
color.
don't love again, and you know this, is we're gonna leave it to a subject of Mike to say, oh yeah, no, that's a nice paint color, or it's not. And I don't like that. I'd
Is
like
he an
to-
artist?
Yeah. Oh, Mike's got ideas, oh yeah. Like, are we all in consensus of the letters have to be removed at least? Like, if
agree
it's,
with
if
that.
it's within like
I'll
the
back you up.
Yeah, if it's in
30
the ballot,
minutes,
it's you have to uphold, you know, visual standards.
absolutely,
Clad
so,
or painted,
yeah, clad it, paint it,
or
sign the heck out of it,
cedars, yeah.
something.
I'm thinking the sentence should start, whereas containers do not meet clause 3.
Yeah.
Because clause 3 speaks about being far away and in the trees and,
Right, yes,
right, so it should start at that.
Right. I just see what wording is, but I believe you're suggesting that if it is beyond 30-meter buffer that's proposed up there, then there might be some exemptions. Like,
And not be met.
Not visible, but will visually be.
Shall be.
Whereas containers do not meet section I, they shall be. What
And
we
we're
have.
still painting.
Then you gotta paint it. If you can't hide it, if you can't hide it in the back 40, or it's not behind trees, or it doesn't have siding or improvements of fences and that,
So it's.
then it shall be
That
painted.
is paint.
yeah,
But what if it's one of those gray ones that come all gray? And you were gonna paint gray,
Then it's newly painted. There's some newly painted ones, like the beige ones, or they look really
Yeah.
sharp, and the gray ones too. They're already painted.
yeah, but some originals can be gray too.
Sure, yeah, but what we're saying is that it has to be maintained, right? So it's nice now, but in 20 years from now, this bylaw's still there, that you have to maintain it and. Shouldn't be covered with rust, right? Every once in a while paint it, whatever.
Oh, shall be rust protected. But you're saying before they're rusty, you gotta paint them, like when they come
They
into.
come already painted, so if it's new, you don't have to do anything,
Oh,
except
all
if
of
it's got the letters of the shipping on it, right?
Oh, so most of them come pre-painted anyway.
Yeah.
So some do, yeah.
yeah,
Depends.
it's honestly the ones that, you know, have probably made the trip 12 times that come in and they're rusty, and I got a great deal in a shipping container because it's all rusty, and then. Like, it has a long life left in it, so I understand the practicality of
Mhm.
the shipping container, it's just. You know, I don't wanna be driving down the street and. Looking at these billboards and or looking at something that's detracting away from the neighborhood, right?
Mhm. Well, I've been,
Does that give
So-
more flexibility then?
Am I taking into? I've been typing and not listening to everything, so I don't know that I got it.
That's how I felt.
I know. Why I'm doing it for you? Take one for the team.
you sent me.
But
this
is it
recent-
uniform color
Oh,
to
yeah.
blend into surroundings and remove neutral and natural colored paint?
No, I did still keep that in there.
Neutral and natural colored paint, yeah.
A uniform color to blend into, okay.
Yeah, and even though this exempts people under, say, part 3 from having to paint it in a neutral and or natural color, we would still encourage that as a township anyway. Like, we still want to see people doing, you know, those kind of upgrades and wanting
Yeah.
to improve the visual appearance of their property.
If they wanna
Plus-
paint it rust colored. Yeah, I guess,
I was just saying that some of them, I didn't realize that a lot of them come painted, so.
So I added in 6 as well
There's no bare metal shipping containers that I can
from
think of.
Eric's comment.
Yeah, they're all painted
They're
or,
coated, yeah.
yeah, they all have.
Yeah, and some I admit are ugly.
If
but
we're okay with that?
painted.
Yeah, that's a good catch, that.
That's a good catch.
I just talk about the ones that all look okay.
Yeah, if they look okay,
Because
although,
I don't know if there's any
Yeah,
properties
they-
along
they
Highway
might look okay
17,
and
but
be
they've
all
seen
lettered
that
up,
avenue
so
as
it
sometimes
might be
it's
all
set
red
back
beige,
from
yeah.
that bill.
Did we take it in the uniform color,
Are we
No
taking
lettering?
out uniform?
applying a uniform color? I just wanna make sure that they're,
Should
that
comply.
letters need to be, all markings need to be removed from the. There. People will be out there with their gun and.
Well, if it's uniform color. If they
Right,
paint
They
all
should be
black.
gone.
then it's
then
gone.
it's gone,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure,
Because technically you don't have permission to advertise for a company.
correct, or window.
Mhm.
Shall be removed
Copyright
or
infringement.
masked, I guess, because if they don't remove them and they paint it all one color, do I care that the letters are under it? Not really.
We need to write something that has to be maintained over the years in that state.
Yep, right there, and shall. Yeah, right up, yeah.
Um,
And maintained in that condition.
should we do- Okay, so then I have to do that in 3 too. No, because 3, they don't have to do anything, they
No.
can do,
Shall be
Well, but-
protected and.
except for exceptions to this rule can be met where alternative arrangements such as tree line fences or other.
They'll be
Be
periodically
considered,
less protected by applying a uniform maintain.
Shall be
Shall be
maintained. in that
maintained
state.
as. Shall be, yeah,
Right at the end.
at the end or right here?
Nope. At the end.
and
Go down.
Shall be rest protected by applying a uniform color to blend with the
Okay.
surrounding neutral and natural color. And be maintained.
With neutral natural.
and shall be maintained in such state. I think we struck a balance, because it's like, okay, if you're in the back 40, we figured out how to way around that. So it's really just addressing those that are.
In your face.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, general consensus?
Mhm.
Good, okay,
Yeah.
forget that.
um,
But think about it, 4 of 7.
Yeah, these, do we want to go over these notes or not? I mean, some of this we just covered, but. So this was notes not written in the bylaw for anyone watching. So property owners seeking to introduce a shipping container or any other accessory structure will continue to be advised. to Contact the chief building official prior to the acquisition and or placement of such structures to ensure compliance with the above provisions and adherence to the Building Code Act. Any proposal to introduce a 30-meter buffer around the perimeter or in part, i.e. along the shore road allowance, in non-residential limited service locations, could also require an amendment to section 3.26 buffer strips and or 3.29 conformity with existing setbacks. So these are other provisions in the comprehensive zoning bylaw. I think that might be one that we would address through the comprehensive, like the review of the comprehensive
Mhm.
zoning bylaw. It's not something that the two kind of interplay at the moment, but could be tightened up for sure. But 3.29 conformity with existing setbacks. Let's just check that one. Yeah, it refers to the 3 meters from the front lot line and need not be no greater than setback.
It's the building. That's why we took that big discussion, because there's a building line.
Yeah.
That is created in the zoning bylaw that if your neighbors, if you're going to build a house on a lot and all your neighbors are in front of the required setback, you can still build to that building line.
And that's the, we talked about that in the last meeting as well, so. Just recognizing that that still exists within there. The next bit about visually appealing, so we've kind of covered that again. Eventually, maybe there will be some design guidance that we can attach onto a future official plan zone bylaw. But that's later down the line. And the last point here is we may also need to consider whether changes are required to 3.39 garden suites. I.e., should garden suites be restricted on the property if a standalone additional dwelling unit is proposed? And should existing garden suites be allowed to be converted to additional dwelling units, subject to approval from the chief building official?
There's no difference in ADU to a garden suite.
Yeah.
It's more or less an agreement with the municipality.
Yeah.
And building code, building code differences.
A garden suite is something that we permit in the zoning bylaw up to a maximum of 20 years. So the owner has to enter into an agreement that they could put a secondary, it would be like a secondary house. Sometimes they're connected to the same water and sewer, sometimes they have their own, but it's a 20-year agreement. After 20 years, garden suites must be removed.
I think the ADU makes the garden suite
Redundant.
obsolete,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Well, why? Because you have to pay to enter into that agreement. ADU, you don't. So
Yeah,
that's an antiquated term.
It's expensive to take a. Remove. a building.
exactly, yes.
Yes and no, because doesn't the bit about the additional dwelling units, that's assuming it's gonna be a permanent structure, right? So if you had it as a modular structure, you were taking it off the lot
Oh,
at some stage, then you're losing some of the housing supply.
But so modular as in mobile, because anything that we give a permit for is not mobile. We don't allow mobile homes.
No,
So everything has to be on a foundation.
okay.
You guys must have the most interesting conversations during the day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go back to the rust one. We were like, rust
So,
protected. Does that mean
um,
I can just throw oil all over the container? That's rust protected. We have very good discussions.
Where'd you get that from?
Yeah, somebody might have said that.
So we're happy with leaving the language around garden suites as is, or just removing all together?
I don't see, we could just remove them all together. We don't have an agreement with any garden suite right now.
Thoughts on this?
No more garden suites.
Delete garden,
ADUs.
delete garden suites?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I mean, it's lead you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Or
Garden
you
suites
can
is-
pay us extra to put a garden suite.
They're right. Why would you?
Mhm.
General consensus on that?
Garden suites, the same thing as.
I mean, ADUs weren't permitted before. Now they are, so it's just gonna be.
okay, so in the definition of ADUs, do we want to put in there that for clarity, this includes garden suites, just so that if anyone's using them?
Well,
that we know?
don't have it.
No. Okay, all right, they're gone. So, but not yet, subject to
General
approval.
consensus?
I'm just confused, maybe it's a secondary dwelling. And they refer it to a garden suite.
Right,
They just need to change their verbiage and it's the same thing.
Yeah,
Call it something.
Because a garden suite would require an agreement with the municipality, and I'm not aware of any agreements with any property owners for garden suites.
mhm,
So
Yeah.
in other
So there would be
municipalities, they have
existing-
garden suites. You
Yeah.
enter into an agreement, and you pay the municipality I believe $10,000 for 20 years. You wanna build that, or do you wanna build an ADU in
no, I was just wondering about previous,
previous? Yeah, so
Yeah.
we don't have any, she
Yeah.
said, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's none that I
It
know. of.
wasn't permitted before, so that was an agreement to. provide the
yeah, it was
home.
permitted, yeah, in 2015.
If there is some, they would be legal non-conform.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
right.
there's some shit up here.
Mhm.
Okay, so as mentioned, we'll be deleting the following, so section 3.38 secondary dwelling units in its entirety, because we're covering that off. We'd also be adding the following, which is section 3.44 hunt camps. So hunt camps shall be seasonal structures which shall not exceed a maximum gross floor area of
600 or 800.
600
Already changed.
square feet, and they are not designed for year-round occupancy and are not permitted to be used as such. Hunt camps shall not be permitted in the following locations: the hamlets of Bonfield and Rutherglen, and the residential limited services zone.
Unless they previously existed or grandfathered in,
Well, we
Then
didn't
I have
have a hunt
not the
camp, so-
hamlet, but
Yeah.
I'm saying, you know, if somebody owned quite a bit of property in the RLS zone. I don't
Yeah.
know if there is.
We did look at that. There are potentially 2 properties that may be able, because
Mhm,
they're,
They're all-
they are not listed currently. They are currently listed as vacant land. The 2 that we looked at were vacant land. So there shouldn't be a structure on them.
mhm.
Mhm.
Okay, I was just thinking of a piece.
Mm.
Yeah, I just thought it was a large piece.
Okay.
We should see if that is one that we have as vacant and you know there's something. open.
No, I don't know anything's on
Okay.
it. but I just-
There's a whoa, 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 yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I'm not knocking on anybody.
ATV and I never saw one. Potential.
Okay, so next bit, hunt camps must comply with the Ontario Building Code and applicable laws. And a building permit must be obtained from the chief building official prior to the construction of a hunt camp, wood stove, decks, and or plumbing. The next bit is to add the following. So we're good with that? Who's good with that wording?
Yeah.
Section 3.45, additional dwelling units.
Sorry, when it comes to like building permits, like are you doing a new fee structure? Like I'm thinking like for a hunt camp, is it still the minimum 4,000?
No, no, so we're gonna need new fee structures for EDUs, on camps.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do, what type of
Well,
money again?
hunt camps could fall under the seasonal dwelling thing. They may,
Isn't seasonal
yeah,
4,000?
no, but we can do amendments to the zoning, to the user fee bylaw. We first have to get through this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but I was just
Yeah, that's
wondering.
fair. No, I don't think anybody's looking to charge somebody $4,000
No.
to put up a 600 square foot or 800
No.
square foot. Actually, if I was a betting man, I would not put money. I don't know where council's gonna go on that, to be honest. Probably have a fairly good, like, I put some money, I don't know where they're gonna go.
On the eight, let's
On
look
the
at the eight,
size,
Might
yeah.
go back to
Don't
Paul.
forget, it's not building area, it's gross floor area, so.
Yeah, yeah.
You can have a loft and that's gonna count against it, right? So.
No, you can't have, on camp, are you allowed to, it's gotta be one story.
Does it
One
say
story.
story?
That count as okay, moving on, moving on. Let's not reopen
Doesn't
that.
specifically say that on here, though, does it?
Yeah, let's go back.
Mike, doesn't specifically say that here, does it?
Definition?
Definition.
Oh, okay. You don't need to be included in this point, though.
Definitions.
All right, so next bit, add the following, section 3.45, additional dwelling units. So for the purposes of this bylaw, additional dwelling units are further categorized as follows. So we mentioned before, additional dwelling unit attached, and additional dwelling unit detached. And additional dwelling units, including a combination of attached and or detached units, will be permitted within the township of Bonfield to a maximum of 3 dwelling units per eligible lot within the prescribed zones as listed in section 4 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2013 as amended. And a maximum of 2 dwelling units will be permitted within the primary structure. Any proposal to introduce more than 2 dwelling units within the primary structure would require, as mentioned earlier, the property to be rezoned as a residential multiple attached RM zone to ensure compliance with property standards outlined within the Ontario Building Code.
I just wonder if we need something in there, so a maximum of 2 dwelling units will be permitted within the primary structure. Which will count towards, like, I wonder, for clarity, do we need to like count towards the 3? Like, so if you put 1, so it says a maximum of 2.
Yeah,
So if you
Yeah,
put
I'm just gonna
1,
appear.
yep,
then you have 2, you could still do a third, but the 1 counts toward one of the 3,
yep.
the additional 1, right? I just want to make sure that it's perfectly clear that we're not.
Yeah.
Getting challenged on it in a year or 2 years when our institutional memory is long
I
gone.
think the previous statement spells it, the maximum
Yeah.
3 dwelling units per eligible lot.
Period.
Okay, yeah, as long as when people that aren't us are gonna interpret this and say a maximum of 2 dwelling units will be permitted with the primary structure. Because when we say that, we're saying it's either attached or. If you go up.
Yeah.
Attached to-
No, because
Yeah.
we do go on to say section 4 of the areas in which the ADUs will be permitted, so that's why that reference is there.
We win the lottery and everybody's moved on to
Okay.
something else.
We can add something, absolutely. A maximum of 2 dwelling units will permit each other.
You know, you can only just, those graphics that were shared from other municipalities, you can do a graphic of that and post it on the website too, right? So, you
Oh.
know, informative, whatever, and then
Yeah.
make people see the, you know.
Totally, yeah, this is like the written legal text, if you like.
Yeah.
There'll
Yeah,
be a
the
lot more
website, sign it,
education and
and-
communication around this.
In the newsletter when we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we are redoing our website, so part of that, every department is looking at what they have on their website, and much like what Mike did for shipping containers, we're going to make fact sheets about these individual things, so that we're posting something, so like, hey, here's shipping containers, here's accessory, here's ADUs, so there will be fact sheets that go out that will be very plain language, not this legalese stuff, very plain language and visual.
Great.
It's going to take us a while to get there and to
Yeah.
get all of that compiled, but that is in our
Winter
work plan.
project.
Mhm.
Okay. So we're good with that as worded, that section? Yeah? See nods?
Yeah.
Wonderful, so. 3.4, 5.4, so I have a leaf here, page 5. ADU shall only be permitted in the following zones: the residential first density zone, the residential second density zone, and the rural zone, with the following exceptions. ADUs will not be permitted within the recreational area designation where the residential limited service area zoning applies, and other designated lands considered incompatible with the proposed residential use. The last point there is more that site-specific approach, that maybe there's other factors that are limiting the amount of development that could be achieved,
So.
or some reason why you couldn't have that.
Swamplands and stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we didn't want them commercial or industrial.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what it's special zones? For example, when you
So-
are at capacity. I sent
So-
out the email because so you have lots that are basically have been determined. Cabascon Bay, right?
Mhm.
So you have X amount of lots. And they're at capacity, so that basically means that if it's a vacant lot, never been built on, then you can build.
Mhm.
And that's still, you're within capacity, because
It's
that
been factored
calculation
in.
has been done for that, right?
Mhm.
But it also means that you can't split lots in half, because those lots are a certain size and they know that you can't really put a septic on it. But those lots should still be able to accommodate ADUs on it. Right?
I think we'd have to talk to the North Bay Mattawa
Mhm.
Conservation Authority on that.
Yeah.
For the lakes that are at capacity, you bring up a really valid point, but I think that's
Yeah,
something that we
You're
need,
Increasing capacity.
yeah,
Okay, can I
Well,
talk on
you're-
that?
Yeah, please.
yeah.
That's one of the things I do, that, I will look into things when I'm reviewing stuff.
Yeah.
And it only takes a phone call. And I did talk to North Bay Mattawa, because when I saw that, I was quite concerned, because we had it under the OP in 2013. So when I spoke with the regulator, I forget his name, he said that even though it was at capacity, with the ADUs, it didn't change anything. It was still the same for anybody else. If it met all the same, their septic met it, their all requirements, as if I lived in rural. So my understanding
So if you,
was that there was no further restriction. Because of being at capacity, as long as it met all the requirements.
does that mean
Like septic.
without changing the
That's strange.
septic?
No,
Because
so,
we're talking about
Yeah.
potentially tripling the capacity.
Well, no, you
No.
couldn't have it. You'd be like rural.
so I struggle with this too, but if I can speak on it, then, a lot of this, and I'm in that zone actually. So a lot of it has to do with the fact that these are all lakefront properties, and it's at capacity because of the lake. And why is it at capacity? Because there's a minimum, or there's a frontage that basically each lot deserves. And they don't want people to start cutting it lengthwise, because then you don't meet septic, you don't meet, and you can't get a roadway in there.
Mhm.
So then you can't really also cut it the opposite way and make it two short rectangles, because you're cutting off lots. So the at capacity is more dictated towards the fact that you can't really do much with those lots the way they are because they touch Shields Point and they go to the lake in really linear, things. But if you have the same lot and you do an addition to it, you can have a single washroom house right now with a septic, but you can have, and if Mattawa says, yeah, no, you have the room for it, you're above the water level, put a greater septic there and add 4 washrooms to one house. There's no differences if you add two additional dwelling units further up the laneway. The septic size will be the same and lot size stays the same. So you can't really dictate the fact that you can't discredit these lots from being at capacity is not because of capacity of houses, but it's more capacity because you can't do anything with the lots.
Number of lots.
Number of lots. You can't do anything with the lots because they're cookie cut and because I was thinking about that and I'm like, this doesn't apply and it shouldn't apply. And Mattawa Conservation Authority, I called them to left messages. Basically, if you can get a septic and if you can get water, then you should be able to get your additional dwelling units.
It
It doesn't mean, yeah, it's just saying that you can't sever any of these lots. You can't, like,
No, no,
at
lot
least
three.
you can't sever. That's what the special zone refers to, is that you can't sever because your lots are in such a way that they go from road to they're thin strips, right?
And the number of lots are at capacity.
Yeah, so it's not capacity because you don't want to increase septics because you're too close to the water, all that. No, because I mean, look at Talon is not at capacity. The opposite side of the lake is crown land and all that stuff, right? So you're not really harming the water body that way. It's at capacity because of lot shape.
So we'll reach out to North Bay Mattawa to
Yeah.
get that in writing and then we can
Yeah.
make sure that we add that in there.
Yeah, so it's just as long as it complies like everyone else.
Yeah, and I mean, the restriction would be.
They have the
ultimately-
authority over that, not us. So
Oh, yeah,
we
yeah.
need them.
But and to make it more like, the restriction would be is if you don't meet the setbacks and if you can't get your water and if you can't get your septic, which is basically a restriction to any other lot anyway, right? If you-
Sometimes it comes into the 30-meter setback as well. So you would,
Hmm.
there might be
What do you
where,
mean 30 meters setback?
so the north, from the lake, there's a
Oh, from the lake,
30-meter
yeah.
setback, so sometimes you can't build
Yeah,
because just of that alone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you wouldn't be able to.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then we gotta talk about ADUs are supposed to be in the backyard, rear
Yeah.
yard, so the lake is the front yard.
where
Yeah.
does it say that they're supposed to be at the backyard?
I think.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right in the
we're gonna get into
definition,
that,
yeah.
right?
Okay.
They're
I thought that
accessory,
was-
so accessory always has to be
Well, I
behind the
didn't think
house
that
line.
ADUs were accessory anymore.
Yeah.
That
No,
ADUs are dwelling units.
We
That's not,
make them,
well, they're primary, they're a secondary unit, right? A secondary unit is not accessory, it's a secondary dwelling unit. So a third dwelling unit would not be accessory anymore, they would be dwelling units.
Additional.
so we've made them that this bylaw, like everything in here, the ADUs are in the rear or the side yard.
Yeah, most
They're not,
municipalities
they're
have
not
that.
in the front. They're not, like, so the road's here and it's not in the front and then your house.
Yeah, okay, no,
Yeah.
I agree with the, if you have it right beside it, but I mean, you had said that, they need to be in the back of the house, I'm like, no. In rural lots, that's gonna be a little bit weird, so you're gonna have a road in the house and then you have to put all of them behind, even though you have the
Or
room,
at
so
the
that's a
side.
different story in a
Or
road, right?
the side, the
the
front
side.
face could be the same,
Okay,
but it
Yeah.
cannot be in the front yard.
It can't be in
Okay.
front- Can't be in front of the house.
sure.
Primary, it has to remain primary. I guess.
Mhm.
No, that's another point I wanted to make. We can talk to it now or wait till we get there, but it's in there. Okay, we can wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the other thing that, when I saw that, I'm going, because, we wanna, create an equitable social environment for all residents. And to provide a range of housing opportunities and types that will meet the various physical and financial needs of all residents.
Mhm.
For sure.
Okay.
Those in code.
So,
for them,
Yeah,
right?
and that they're kind of in charge of the water rates.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's almost, it's all great points, but it's kind of moot, because I think the conservation authority would be like, yes, you, or actually, the province might actually come in and say,
Yeah.
thou shalt on this, right?
mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Okay, so we will do some further research on that
Okay.
tomorrow.
All right, so continuing from that point, so in all circumstances, applicants will need to demonstrate compliance as follows. Additional dwelling units shall be located in the rear or side yard of the principal dwelling, as mentioned. The minimum size of any habitable ADU is 188 square feet or 17.5 square meters. The gross floor area of the additional dwelling unit shall not exceed more than, we've got here 40% of the total gross floor area of the primary residence. Any comments on that? 40%, was there a particular reason for that again, Mike? Trying to remember.
Yeah,
It was discussions that we had here.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It's just, what do we
prescribed.
do?
Not in favor.
Yeah, Mike,
No.
Mike's not in favor. It was the conversation that we had here, was whether the
Yeah.
primary is, stays primary. And then the accessory can go, and I think there's another section in here, isn't there, that we talk about a time limit?
Yes,
So you're not favoring the
Yeah.
40% or?
No, so
maybe
let's
that's
say,
not
let's say
restricted.
if you're a young couple and you can only afford 1,000 square foot home, you can only build an ADU that's 400 square feet.
yeah,
But if
doesn't
you,
make
if you
sense
got a
to me.
lot of money and you
Yeah.
built a 5,000
Might as well
square
build
foot
a
home, you
Hunter.
could build a 2,000 square foot ADU. So,
that's later
but
on.
I do see numbers in the 40s to 50% in other municipalities, but I wonder why it's there.
Yeah, I don't know either, because it doesn't make sense to me.
It's still governed by lot coverage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that the hamlets, they're gonna be, it doesn't, you can set whatever thing you want, but you can say that the total amount, and you have to address this early on before they build the first one, right? You could say the total of all three combined cannot exceed this much coverage. And so if you wanna do your primary takes up 40%, and to reach 100, so you could do 40%, and 20% mini. You could do that, like variations of it, but you have to set, don't exceed this much coverage and all three in your hamlets.
And the
So you
province
could
is
play with that.
regulated
That's
that
not the
at
coverage,
45.
that's the 40% of the primary building.
No,
the
I-
secondary one,
I
right?
understand that, there's pre-planning involved, but.
But you're limited on other stuff like
Yeah,
setbacks.
yeah, that's what I'm saying,
Your
because it's,
distance, your field
I
bed.
guess what I'm getting at is
well-
if you say 40% and then their setbacks are such because they have a small lot, and they build a 40%er, and then you tell them you can't build a third one now because your 40%er is maxed out on your lot
Lot
coverage.
coverage.
So what I'm saying is they should have the opportunity to say, your current house takes up 40% of your 100% coverage that you can. So you can go and split it between the other two. You can go, like 40 and 20, or, to make up the rest, right? So I would like it more fluid because of the fact that these hamlets are restricted that way. As long as they stay within the max coverage, you can see, because they can have a tiny little house. And then it could be the opposite, right? The parents live in a tiny house, but they've made their retirement and they said, we're gonna give the kids the small house, but we wanna build a bigger house. So can we now take our lot, which we own, and build a bigger house and say, my wife and I are taking over the primary residence, the kids are getting the existing house, which is gonna be smaller than the new house. So switch it out and say,
Yeah.
primary is the new one.
We have that.
We
here.
do
I
have that
like
later.
that idea.
Right there, complete reading, you can do it.
Yeah,
With a minor
And
variance.
so the smaller one
good
may
point,
be
thanks.
in the front yard and the larger one behind in that circumstance.
yeah,
Well,
And I've seen that in farm
Yeah, yeah.
country.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Like either way.
So make sure when you build that small.
yeah,
one,
I'm
it's
not really.
Way back.
I'm not super convinced on it's gotta be in the side or backyard, only for the fact that if I built on the backside of my lot.
Yeah, that'd be
I probably
blocked.
don't have enough setback off my back property line, but I could have 7 acres in front of me. Like, why would we care?
Typically, so good neighborhood planning is that it's, when you're coming along the road, it's your house,
Right.
right? Like that's neighborhood planning. That's just the generics of.
In the,
Yeah.
I would say the
Planning.
hamlet, sure.
Yeah, and that's.
And then a rule, like that's typically. That's just.
Except those long driveways.
Yeah, it's huge long driveways.
Yeah,
Yes.
it'd be a long way
Appeal,
to connect
so
to
you'll
the
see a
septic.
small
and
house.
whatever.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike, what was that?
I think it's for the appeal, right? So you don't, so when you look at a
It's
lot,
good.
you see nice sized building as opposed to a little.
What
tiny
happens
home
if
on
they
the
wanna
front
build
lawn.
3 1,000 square foot homes? They're building them all like, okay, pick front and back, like, how do you?
And you're all on the same septic and well, like if
No.
you're way,
It doesn't have to be on the
no,
same
it's not
side.
at the same.
No, so I contact North Bay Meadow Conservation
Okay.
Authority and you can have more than one septic.
Okay.
So provided you meet all the setbacks to the other septic and
Yeah.
buildings and,
Yeah,
Well,
you can have your two new ones on a new septic.
Mhm.
yeah, we cover that further on there.
I'm just trying to find the rationale for restricting it, because there is so many variances that. The three identical houses with different, like, pick front and back.
They have to be in the building line. They would have to be in the building line then. So whichever one is closest, so you have to meet your front yard setback of your 20 meters.
Yeah.
And so that would be where the first one could possibly be, so everything beyond that is side or rear.
Mm.
And then in on the sides.
Okay.
Sometimes there are properties that get severed and they share a driveway. And then that's when we get our irregular lots, which create problems for down the road when new policies come up. Happens all the time, but it's still good neighborhood planning. It's the basics planning 101 of having the appearance of a neighborhood, the appearance of, the uniform.
Yeah, certainly in hamlets and more visible locations.
Yes.
Right, so,
You want that building line.
Yeah. You do. But maybe there are some exemptions for the rural, but it's gonna make this whole policy more complicated by design.
and it may have to be kind of amended to reflect what's going on.
Mhm.
In
Well, I
order
mean,
to achieve the.
They could always do a zoning
additional-
bylaw amendment
So
to
you-
justify the case in a similar way
Yeah.
to we were saying about the buffers and, maybe there's ways. Ways on the onus should be on the applicant to demonstrate why that's suitable in planning terms.
And generally planning is done for the majority, right? So it's done for here is the design, we want neighborhoods, we want, rural, that's the whole point of having setbacks on a property, right? Is to say that this is how we want to design. So you plan for the majority of your municipality, and then there's minor variances, and then there's things for those one-offs that just don't fit into the structure of a regular lot, hamlet lot.
Mm.
Or a regular lot.
But what happens with, some people have put their house on their lot, never ever thinking this was gonna come to
Yeah,
be.
exactly. That's what
So-
a minor variance is for.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's expensive for a minor variance, so.
Well, it's not free.
Well,
It's
Yeah.
relative.
yeah, okay, but I mean, for any,
Yes.
it costs, it's more money, right?
Yeah.
So that people are, so if we're finding that, a large percentage would need a minor variance, then maybe we could amend it to suit.
And
Come
I
up
feel,
with something to suit.
well, I would just say, actually, I would struggle with. That meeting the definition of minor to be a minor variance, if you're gonna say it won't permit you in the front yard, that's not minor. In nature, I would say that's significant. I guess the only other point, that I would make to this is if, well, never mind. I'm like, I don't know.
It still takes, it's not like every person is gonna be getting an ADU, because it still costs.
Yeah.
To build,
Yeah.
and you need all the requirements, and so,
I might-
have you ever thought, like, were you looking like at 20%, or you don't even know at this point, correct?
well, I think we can guess from the conversations that we have that
With
we'll
people?
have quite a few in the
Mhm.
first 5 years, yes.
Yeah,
A number? No, I
Yeah.
can't say, but we have a lot of conversations where people want this.
I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Sorry.
wanting it and affording it,
it
Yeah,
seems to be
yeah.
where it's at right now. That's
Yeah.
why we wanted to create a policy
yes,
to
and
address.
yeah,
but that's why they want the ADU, because they can't afford a house, right? So they can put another family member in an ADU.
yes.
Because they
yes.
cannot afford to buy a house, yeah.
Kids
So
are
they need the.
mom and dad, and,
Mhm.
there could be more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. You're gonna have
Yeah.
multi-generational
Yes.
properties as opposed to structures.
So maybe just to keep this moving forward, we stick with it as being either in the side yard or the rear yard for the time being, and then we could always make further amendments to this down the line if we needed to, but otherwise
You
it's
might
gonna,
get more feedback on it with more.
yeah,
Yeah,
Mhm.
if people can provide solid examples.
Yeah.
And we can reach out to our planners too.
Cause I mean, there's a minimum size for a reason, right? So to keep that. The uniform look of a neighborhood, and it's not like they can build a small shack sitting there, it's gonna be, might be the same size as their neighbor, why would we? Like, it could be, I built my house in the back. I'm gonna build the one in the front yard, that's gonna be similar to my neighbor's house, because it has to meet. The minimum size anyways, right, so. Like, I don't know.
And then it's also.
This is me not being judgy that somebody has to have the biggest house in the front.
Right.
Right?
And all the
Yes.
side back and
Mm.
it's a lot to consider.
I think the majority will be able to meet the conditions of rear and side yard.
Right.
yeah,
Mhm.
Okay,
okay.
general consensus, we can move forward, everyone's all right with this?
With the front and side? Or is there rear and side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, okay,
Yeah,
does anybody need a bio break real quickly? Or are we good to? All right,
page and a half.
here we go, no, let's do it, I
Going.
was just trying to be
Um,
cognizant. that
And the
we've been
audience
here
at
for
home,
2.5 hours now, so.
okay, so access shall be provided by the existing point of access to the primary dwelling, or a new secondary access may be permitted to serve the additional dwelling unit. So long as the property is served by a municipally controlled road, would not have an adverse impact on local traffic flows or the character and amenity of neighbouring land uses, and would be subject to Ministry of Transportation approval off a regulated highway and township approval for other municipally managed roads. Any comments on that one? Access?
Yeah, I'm happy then see Nikki change from municipally controlled to municipally maintained road.
Okay, what about, you're saying the property is served by municipal control road or, maintained year-round road?
That wouldn't apply in this municipality because. Seasonally maintained roads don't have
Oh,
residential units on it,
It's a-
residential lots on it, right? They're seasonal lots
Mhm.
and ADUs aren't permitted on seasonal lots.
No, people have, are allowed permanent lots on.
Careful,
on
you're gonna get
RLS.
people in trouble again.
You can
Yeah,
have a permanent residence on a private road if you have deeded access.
yeah,
If you do not have deeded
or-
access, then you cannot have
Oh,
a private, you
existing-
cannot have a permanent full-time year-round.
Lots do not front on existing public roads maintained on a year road. So in 2013, if you were pre-existing, you're legal.
But that may also come from the bylaw that was done in 1990. Right, so you have to go back to the bylaw in 1990 to know if you're legal non-conforming.
Okay.
But it's still that the rule.
You could still
is
be legal non-conforming in.
If
what
it
you're
were
talking about.
prior to 1990.
Which we would deal on a case by case basis, right? Yeah, yeah, but as long as they're legal at some point, is legal non-conforming, they can
So-
continue to do the thing.
Can we add that? Because if
Well, that's-
because there is conforming people.
I think that's just general for all of our bylaws, is
Yeah.
if you're legal non-conforming, you're legal non-conforming.
That stays in the bylaw.
Yeah.
So this is just a housekeeping where we are just putting those new things into the bylaw. So the legal non-conforming definition remains in the bylaw and applies to all provisions within that bylaw.
The property is served by a municipal control road.
Change control to maintained.
Well, you know what? That's another question too, though, because, that's maybe your restriction and not the provincial government's restriction. The same thing, going back
I
to
don't know what you
them,
mean.
oh, you're trying to say that they're not, You're trying to say that they're not conforming,
No.
that you have to be a permanent, that you're only classified as a seasonal. And an ADU is not allowable in a seasonal. An ADU.
Right,
That's
we
how
have,
correct.
we have them in residential density 1, residential density 2, and rural. But I have a note that we're looking into lake capacity for the RLS.
Yeah, so then why wouldn't you also add?
So which provision are you reading? Are you reading like the definition? Are you reading, because
Talking about.
the legal
a new
non-conforming
secondary act-
is-
oh,
yeah, so legal non-conforming is a provision, a general provision in the zoning bylaw. So it applies to every provision in the bylaw. We're putting these new provisions from the housekeeping bylaw into the zoning
oh,
bylaw.
this,
So legal non-conforming will apply.
this is only access. So a new secondary access may
Yeah.
be, may be permitted. So long as the property is served by. Well, say on a private road, you just don't have anything to do with the access anyway.
We do not.
No. So
We-
that's
we
why it
don't give
wouldn't
permits.
apply, because it's a private
It's a private
maintained
road.
road. Yeah, so access doesn't apply to it anyways, okay?
As long as there is access to the ADU. If you bring up a point, maybe we should have something in there. A secondary access may be permitted. As long as.
Yeah.
Food on a
Secondary
private
access,
road,
not the
there's
existing.
typically a road association that would give some sort of
Let's just leave it
permits.
alone. Because, yeah.
Okay,
Are they gonna build another private road?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
What came, I just want
could
to change
be?
it back to the previous point, what came out of, because we just talked about, you know, the side, rear and side yards. I don't wanna go back there, I wanna go back to the 40%. What was decided there, because I think I missed that.
Yeah, we didn't.
It stays, but there's
Okay.
an exception, maybe made with a minor variance. So
No.
That
okay,
exception is
so
converting
can
which
we
one is
pause it?
primary.
Because I think when we start talking about 2 of the other things later on, it'll
Okay.
come back to it.
Sounds good,
Yes. Because we have 2 other provisions that kind of relate.
missed the full page.
Mhm.
Perfect. Our meeting is open.
Right? That was great to get his hopes up.
Sorry.
So, next bit, the following parking standards are established with respect to additional dwelling units. Each additional dwelling unit shall have 1 parking space that is provided and maintained for the sole use of the occupant of the additional dwelling unit, and a parking space that is provided and maintained for the sole use of the occupant of an additional residential dwelling unit. Maybe a tandem parking space.
tandem is one behind the other.
That's
Mhm.
correct. It's not ideal, but that's what is.
The
allowed
wording
to-
came
to
right
control
from
it.
the regulation
Yeah,
for ADUs.
It's fine.
Mhm.
just means.
Get up, it's 4 o'clock in the morning.
Right?
Yeah.
You might want to
Lots of
coordinate the next
complex.
one. Who's lead first?
Okay, so the proposed
13?
ADU will need to meet all necessary requirements pertaining to the Ontario Building Code.
Slight word change that's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen.
Okay.
Well, it's it's what's in the building code, right? It shall comply with the building code and all applicable laws. And that's how the other parts are described, the hunt camp, the shipping containers.
Yeah.
That's how you do it, so. All applicable laws covers quite a bit, right?
Yep,
Yeah, of course.
no disputes to that.
No, it's weird.
Means the
I
same.
mean,
Higher.
we really have no choice, so we're just gonna put that, of course, it has to comply with all other laws. Yeah.
Okay, so where an attached ADU is proposed, the ADU shall be self-contained within the primary building envelope and must be physically separated from the primary dwelling unit through the incorporation of building design standards that are consistent with the Ontario Building Code and approved by the chief building official for the township of Bonfield. Any comments on that one?
General consensus.
So
Yeah.
where a detached ADU is proposed on the same lot as the primary structure, it must have the same ownership and utilize the same shared services, Septic and water services cannot be shared either between or across separate lots.
Utilize the same shared services. Not necessarily, because you could
That's
have
right.
another well
Yeah.
and have another
Yeah.
septic.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah,
Unless
that's the
you're
old
in the
language, right?
hamlet, that's different position, right, but also even for hydro, I mean, you're gonna have to, get a separate. Meter.
So do we just remove and utilize the same shared services?
At least that too, yeah.
Okay,
Because the same ownership.
Yeah.
But yeah, septic and water cannot be shared between or across separate lots makes
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
sense.
Yeah, because that still stays.
Cause yeah, you'd be able to sell one lot and not the other, and then you're hooked, right?
So next
Okay.
bit goes on to say applicants shall be required to obtain an on-site sewage permit from the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Area Authority for the alteration of a existing or construction of a new or secondary septic system to accommodate the ADU or
Should we put system or systems? Because we said we could have more than one sewage system and all that.
brackets.
Yeah,
Instead of a new system, so of a new or secondary system would make it
Right.
plural.
Secondary system, this is the second one.
Oh,
Okay.
Obtain an offsite sewage. System.
Or shall provide a file review certificate from the MBMCA, it's the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority, where the proposed ADU will be tying into an existing on-site sewage system to ensure it has the capacity to accommodate the additional loads that may be imposed by the ADU. And that either document listed above shall reference that the proposed ADU and on-site sewage system meet the minimum clearance distances to all other existing buildings on the property as regulated under section 8.2 of the Ontario Building Code.
Yep.
We're good?
General consensus,
Mhm.
good to go.
Wonderful.
Look at us trucking right along.
Yep. So in certain locations and circumstances, a hydrogeological assessment may be required to demonstrate there is sufficient capacity to accommodate a new and or upgraded well to service the ADU. So typically that would be lots under 1 hectare in size and with less than 60 meters of frontage. And so all ADUs will be required to have their own laundry services. However, a laundry facility can be shared by 2 separate attached units if the separation is fire rated and meets all Building Code Act requirements. All good?
That's what they're putting in the bruiseway.
Mhm. Just wondering,
With a building permit.
just questioning because so many people still have to go to laundromats that live in apartments. Is that kind of new, like a dwelling now, it's mandatory that they have?
Yeah, you have to have it.
Mhm.
And the places that don't have the room, they're doing stackables, right, which is in a small closet.
Yeah,
They're making room for
What
it.
you have to have is the hookups. You need to have the washer and dryer. Like you have to have the hookups, for sure, you have to have the capacity, whether or not the occupant brings in a washer and dryer is up
Has
to
to
the
be there.
occupant. What's that?
Has to be there for occupancy.
Right, moment after occupancy, what happens if they return the washer and dryer and just use the laundry mat? Cause they've been, yeah, like really, what
We're
difference?
not there to regulate
Yeah,
after.
yeah.
no,
Right.
because like a lot of the old apartments, you gotta go downstairs
course,
or
yeah.
they don't have them.
Apartments for sure, yeah.
Okay, see if we can wrap this up by 9. An ADU may be occupied by any person
That
regardless.
one's getting antsy.
No, I'm trying to, you told me to keep it moving forward. So any ADU may be occupied by any person regardless of whether the person who occupies the ADU is related to the person who occupies the primary residential unit. This says he's related to, isn't it? He's related to the person who occupies the primary residential unit and the person who occupies either the primary or additional dwelling unit is the owner of the lot. Does that make sense?
Means anybody can rent it.
Yeah.
You don't, I can own a house, I can have a primary house with the 2 accessory and I can rent them all out. I don't have to live there.
Oh,
So then there can even become an apartment.
Yes.
I didn't realize you didn't have to be a primary.
Well, maybe, so
Oh.
the person who occupies the ADU is related to the person. Maybe occupy any person regardless of whether they're related to the person who owns
You
the
don't think
primary.
it's related.
The word primary wrong?
Primary residence unit is related to the person who occupies.
So do you own the property has to live in the
This,
primary
the
unit?
first word should
person-
say addition.
Person
Additional.
who occupies unit. So the owner has to live on site, but he doesn't have to live, the second one, he can live either the primary
Ah,
or
okay.
additional
So the property owner has to be
on
site.
additional dwelling.
Can't be an absentee property owner.
somebody can't buy a piece of property, build 3 dwellings and rent them out? They can or cannot?
Can, yes.
But we're not permitting it here though.
Yeah, because we're saying that the person who occupies either the primary or additional dwelling is the owner of the lot. Oh, no, we're saying you may be occupied by a person regardless of whether.
There's a lot of builders in Sudbury buying a lot, putting in 3 units and they don't live there. They're all rented.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so you're
An
right.
ADU
Doesn't-
may be
doesn't have to
occupied
be
by
there.
any person
Right. Longer
regardless
term
of
rentals, right? Like the.
whether.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The person who occupies either the primary or additional dwelling. unit
Regardless
is the
of,
owner.
oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't
Regardless
matter
of-
if 1 or 3, I mean, people build a house and
Mhm.
rent it regardless, so now you're
Yeah.
building 3,
Mm.
better return on investment for your piece of property. Yeah,
Yep.
that's fine.
Well, I can see where you might get a lot.
You will.
Yeah.
There's a lot in Sudbury, believe me.
Mm,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like those CBNCs. So where the use of ADUs is authorized, an ADU is permitted regardless of the date of construction of the primary dwelling unit. So the
Gotta
next,
change residential. to dwelling.
yeah, they've all, it's because we made that change at the end, but why didn't it come through? So the next bit, additional dwelling units, other provisions for discussion purposes. So the primary ADU exchange, this was kind of what you were alluding to earlier. So in exceptional circumstances where it can be demonstrated, property owner can only afford to construct a small dwelling unit on a property of between, say, 400 to 800 square feet. However, does intend to construct a larger dwelling unit at a later date within a period of how many years? The property owner may apply to the township within this period to construct a larger primary dwelling and revert the existing structure to that of an additional dwelling unit.
Why would we restrict the years?
Do we need it?
Yeah.
Oh, this was a heated debate between all 3 of us, so we wanted to know what you guys would say.
Yeah, I don't know. Listen, if it takes somebody 20 years to be able to afford to build a bigger house, why are we
Yeah.
judging?
Yeah, like, I'm the same way, like, I'm thinking,
I'm curious who landed on what side. of the debate. That's what
Nope,
I'm
it's a
wondering,
secret.
Well, there's different viewpoints, to it, right? Accelerating housing delivery, and also, you know, on larger lots, do you really want a load of small homes when they're never gonna build a larger primary, so you have tiny homes, so then you're not. You have underutilized properties.
I know where everybody landed on this now.
The next owner can.
Speaking to you about being financially for all.
But see, if you don't go through this exchange, then they can just revert back to this statement here. It says an exception may be made where an applicant proposes to convert an existing structure that exceeds the threshold subject to an approved minor variance. So after 5 years, it's an existing structure, right? It's not a new build anymore. So.
Okay.
You wanna say 5 years, like it doesn't matter, like
Hmm,
I don't think you should have the time limit there.
okay,
Yeah, me
Just at a
too.
later date.
Yeah.
At a lady, there's too many why you're doing it. It might be for retirement, it might be
Make a
three
change, we're
houses?
all agreeing on this one,
Yeah.
yeah.
We were just looking at example.
Appreciate
We're
it.
taking out a date.
Yeah, there's no.
Other than that, everybody happy with the wording of that section?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
Now, small dwelling is
no,
defined between.
I'm
4 and
probably
8.
gonna take this out because we can't define this,
right, yeah,
If we talked about 1,000 square foot being small
Yeah.
earlier,
where it can be demonstrated.
yeah,
Mhm.
do we need to qualify small?
Yeah, like,
It's a smaller dwelling than whatever they were trying to construct, that's all.
why don't we just say where a smaller dwelling unit?
Smaller.
Yeah, smaller.
Yeah,
Smaller.
why are we saying can demonstrate
It's an
a word?
adjective and not a
It's-
defined term.
Yeah. Adjective.
So basically.
Well done.
Basically that you give the right for the owner to deem another house as a primary in order to meet their coverages.
Wait,
I think this whole thing needs to be, because really, it's a lot simpler than what we're trying to say here. It's
Mhm.
basically just. If in the future you want to build a larger house in your property, come and apply for that to be your primary.
And then.
And we do
then
that
6
in
years
that other
after
section.
Yeah.
Even the third one even larger than that, right?
And then
Yeah.
if you want to come in and
As
have a
long
swap
as-
over there.
Lot
long as-
coverage.
Like, that's what I'm saying, as long
Yeah.
as you meet the coverages
Yeah.
and you're within it, pre-plan and do the math, right?
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
But that's only really come.
And
back from
we're
tonight's
sending everybody to
conversation.
you for
This was the
pre-planning.
premise of the last conversation that we had, when we talked about flipping from an ADU. to a
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
So
We had time to think about it.
it wasn't me that actually came up with
because
that.
I don't think you can demonstrate a property owner can afford, like how. Like, that doesn't, where it can be demonstrated.
Right,
Yeah, just change the
So
premise to
just-
be if it, like, just simplify it. and just-
yeah,
Like nothing to do demonstrating what they can afford, that might not even be the reason.
Like, really, what do we care if they come in every third year to say, I'd like this house to be my primary now, and then I'd like this was.
Well, it'll only happen twice per lot.
Well, they might flip it back to the original one.
if we don't want the
Close to the
exchange,
middle.
We'll just
based
have
on the
a fee every
conversation that we
That's a
had
whole bucket.
before, if we don't want the exchange concept in there, what was the section that you read earlier? About you can switch them through a minor variance?
45.9.
Okay.
It's regarding the gross floor area. Which again, I circled back because we didn't.
Yeah.
Complete that.
I've got granola bars.
Last minute.
No, it's okay, we're almost done, Simon,
2 minutes.
Simon promised to wrap this up in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Was there any
So-
comments? Go on. You were just referring to that. Is there anything else on that 3.4 5.9? Are we done on that?
Well, it's the 40%.
It's the
because
40%.
we didn't really close out, but
But we're leaving it at that for now.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave it at 40%.
Yeah.
I'd rather do coverage for hamlets and like.
I think.
Well, that's what guys.
Rural houses
Where-
are small, so I mean, I would go as far as 80%. You have 100 acres and you have a small house, why can't the second one be 80% and the next one 80%?
Mhm,
so
Because
the,
you're not gonna exceed any of your coverage and setbacks.
mhm.
it's gonna get wide.
And again, if you're gonna play that whole thing about we can transfer primary, then they can do that.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, so we don't know yet if that's legally possible. We need to consult on that because
Okay.
nobody else does it. So the danger in the 40% is if you build your minimum house of 800 square foot and then you want to build an ADU, not subject to this.
Yep.
Then the maximum size you could do for the ADU would be like 350 square feet. That's it,
Yeah,
at 40%.
yeah.
And the province came out with a
Small, yeah.
regulation to say that ADUs, we cannot restrict ADUs. In 45%,
mhm.
so they can take up 45% of lot coverage
Yeah.
after the house.
So-
Lot coverage.
No, I know, but
Size
Yeah.
of building.
Yeah,
But I'm saying if we talk about size of building, do we care about the size of the building? If we go with the entire lot size, if we take that piece from before, that the lot size on an ADU cannot have more than 45% coverage,
It's a rural lot. The lots
Yeah.
are immense, right?
And what, like, why would?
but
we
not in
restrict that?
Hamlet.
If they build 3 mansions, that's just better for.
Yeah.
Right, but they still
It
could.
defeats the point.
They
isn't it?
still
It's all about
could.
finding smaller housing for the
Right.
points that
Yeah.
you make about equity and
Yeah.
accessibility, affordability.
But if that's not what they do and they build 3 really big houses, just their assessment goes up.
Mhm.
So why would we restrict?
maybe keep
40%
the,
of a big house.
maybe to keep the property smaller so that it is more affordable, whether it's being rented or what. Like, the bigger it is, the more it's gonna cost, it's not gonna be.
Well,
affordable.
the market,
idea-
like the market will
Take the
dictate. If they build a huge mansion and can't rent it out, then. Or have somebody
It's
else.
only gonna happen on really large properties, because
Right.
nobody wants to live in 3 mansions on the same 100 acre
Yeah.
lot.
No, of course.
And ADUs really were meant for everything that Gina's been talking about the affordability, the equitability, the, you know, solving that homelessness thing, right? That's why we're doing ADUs.
Yes, but. I
And
mean-
housing market, like the
Well,
housing
yeah, if you
supply.
flood the housing market with a whole lot more housing and the cost of housing instantly goes down, right? So it doesn't matter if they build 855 million medium-sized houses, the cost of the small ones are gonna go down.
Mhm. So instead of saying the percentage of the primary, do you just want to change it to it's the maximum lot coverage is 45%?
Yeah.
It doesn't apply to rural anyway, though.
But it would apply to any property that had an ADU. Because right now, we do not allow anywhere near 45% in any property, there, in any zone, we are nowhere near 45%. Of what you're allowed to have coverage, right? So if we say that we want to go from. The rural lot right now, so
15%.
I'm sure I don't have any more.
which one is it?
No, I don't have any more.
How many times have we pulled the set?
Hmm.
So a residential first, residential first density and the second density, which are the two that we're saying, are 20% and 30%. So if we increase that, the maximum lot coverage, if they have an ADU, is 45%, we're opening up the ability for them to have bigger houses, like more house, right? In the rural zone, the rural zone right now is 50%.
Cause I mean, they'll never get there anyways. Like we,
Well, in a hamlet, you would though.
well, sure. and-
Quickly in the hamlet. So if we left rural at 50, we're good. But if we moved the residential 1 and residential 2 to 45%, if they have an ADU, it's incentive to make the ADU because you have more lot coverage.
Does it change with third ADU?
Sorry,
Does it stay the same if it's a third ADU?
it would still have to, yeah, I think the province said max 45.
Okay.
Mhm.
I don't think the lot coverage is a restrictive factor, the 40% of building area is the restrictive factor. If you remove
Yeah.
that, the other one doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So just removed any,
Yeah.
So what would you increase?
no, they're saying remove it.
I'll remove it, like it's not.
Because it would be the coverage that dictates it.
And the coverage is already in the zoning.
Yeah. I think somewhere it has to be communicated. Oh, no, yeah.
But if you exceed 100%, it would have to send you back to this other statement here, where you do have to do the flip, right? So if you build it 300% bigger than the primary, then it's no longer smaller, right? So then it would be subject to this, I think.
Maybe this one would need to go and get some more opinion on it.
Yeah, to see if it's even allowed.
It's people with money is gonna build mega mansions on these properties and you're not gonna end up with affordable or attainable units, which I think is the goal of accelerating this.
I think for the most part, we'll
Wow.
still end up with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think the anomaly is going to be the 3 larger houses.
Yeah.
That's going to be the anomaly.
Yeah,
Yeah, every example that's ever come forward to me is it's something to do with their mom and dad or something to do with, you know, that's where society's going on this.
Well, but the other policies in here doesn't limit that, does it, to being family members?
No, but I'm just saying, like, when we're talking about the norm, I think it'll be more that than somebody who bought 100 acres and is building 3 mansions. And if they do that, well, at least that 100 acres isn't sitting empty, it's now got way better assessment value.
And we have no
Finding
potatoes.
positives and no potatoes. Do we grow potatoes around here? Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I can barely grow them in the garden, yeah. we
I have
should, yeah.
concerns about that, but. We'll carry on, shall we?
Well, we need.
Well, you have to
consensus
voice
on
your,
it, yeah.
voice your concern.
I feel like it should be some kind of cap or limitation on it. Whether it could be higher than 40%, I don't know. But
I think we would need clarification, as Mike said, to see if we can even transfer the primary, because. My concern is that people have small houses and you put a cap on it, then they're not even gonna, it's not gonna be worth their time to build an ADU.
yeah,
But if they can transfer it, then it's a game changer, right? And I think that's where we need to figure that out. And, yeah.
Okay.
You're talking about capacity though, right, on a lot?
I'm talking about,
The size of a 40% of.
yeah,
Right.
you've got these large rural lots and you're allowing this generous lot coverage, and then you're also allowing, no restrictions on the size of structures, that you end up with enormous structures, which could again end up being, over occupancy, unauthorized. It's not gonna really solve the problem, which we're looking to do is you provide
And it's not
attainable
gonna,
housing for individuals and couples or whoever.
or fit in with the environment.
Be short-term rentals. Maybe.
Yeah.
Could happen.
Mhm. Oh, I think that's real. I think it'll be short term.
Build 3 mansions.
But we're talking about the mansions, but I'm considering the fact that there's gonna be people that have small houses that just wanna upgrade their lots, and
Yeah.
they're gonna be
Mhm.
restricted, right?
I don't see a problem
I
switching.
get that
from-
side too.
Well, but we don't know if that's doable.
Yeah.
So my question to the planner will be, can we transfer the primary to the ADU so another house can be built on the same land? That's what our problem is. And if yes, then what is the number that we want to cap that at? Like someone said, it could be 140. So you could say you can build to 140% of your primary.
What are some of the other townships, surrounding townships doing? Are they capping?
Some are,
Yes,
yes.
And would it,
I'm trying-
in some zones.
Yeah,
just trying to recall why we ended up at 40%. Is that figure that we came up with, or was that from another
it could be
bylaw?
from another. bylaw.
Probably examples, a lot of examples. that
Yeah.
You guys shared had about that.
Yeah.
Sudbury has 45% for a certain zone, I forget which one it is, it doesn't apply to all zones. I think it applies just to rural, which doesn't make sense.
So maybe we need to look at like 5 to 10 other ones, see if they've got that number, and then go bang in the middle. I doubt anybody is gonna be at, well,
Well,
not have
I mean-
a figure, because
We'd have to compare apples to apples, though. You can't go, Collingwood municipality or whatever, something like that.
No.
No.
They're all
Yeah.
urban, right?
And there's not a lot of
Or bullshit.
municipalities that have these bylaws yet.
Yeah.
There are some, but there's not a lot of municipalities.
Mhm.
So some municipalities have those bylaws for rural areas because they have major development in subdivisions where they don't want the competition of development in rural areas.
Mhm.
Well, that is not a problem we seem to have.
We don't have that here, right? So-
No,
So we shouldn't apply.
not a
Want
problem.
urban,
Yeah.
you're struggling.
or horse farms?
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Well. Geez, it'd be nice to have that problem. Let's sit here and discuss how to limit that. How do we limit development?
Okay, so what do we do? Park that for now,
Where that
get some
one-
more advice? Or?
Well, you said you wanted 80. It's still dictated by lot coverage.
Yeah, as long as
Yeah.
it doesn't surpass.
But the
lot
40 is the
coverage.
restrictive part.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm just saying that if we're allowed to do it, what number do we put in so that we can give this to council for them to deliver it?
yeah, cause if they have 1,000 square foot, even if we go 140%. Like it's still, you can only do 1,400 square feet at home.
Mhm.
They might have.
Like that's
800.
to your point, right? Like it's,
Yeah. We don't know what we really have out there, that's the thing.
what if we did do a maximum of,
Mm.
like a percentage and.
Yeah.
8,000 square feet.
How many dozen
Yeah,
square
okay.
foot homes
5,000
do
square-
we
4,000 square
have?
foot home.
Is that working?
I threw,
that big.
I was just throwing out numbers.
I'm not cleaning that house.
Yeah, like up to a maximum of either. I don't know, I'm just throwing out, can we just actually put a,
I think it still goes to lot coverage.
well, it all
Not
factors in.
necessarily.
Yeah,
So I mean, it's funny because it's dictated by the house you have right now and the size of lot you have, so there's gonna be winners and losers, right? But
We are
I,
not making
I
everybody
kinda-
happy.
no,
Mm.
but that's interesting, you say, what if you say a percentage or to the maximum of this size house as your secondary? That's one way of looking at it too, because then that way you can say, okay, we're agreeing that this is the largest ADU you can build in our township. Regardless if you have a mansion or if you have a, a small house, this is the maximum size, but then there's other factors that come into play, coverages and also
Coverage, yeah.
percentages and which one's your primary,
Yeah.
if we could do that.
So the minutes from the last meeting actually, looks like we agreed at the time that 40%.
Why did we agree on that?
There's consensus there.
Genius.
Because it was.
You're Simon's best friend right now.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta be
It's 'cause my-
somebody's
my-
best
my
friend.
mic muted- my mic
Yes.
muted out at that time and I couldn't push much.
No, I gave your example because I know you're passionate with this one.
I share.
Yeah. What
Well, I
was your
like
example,
where you're
sorry?
going to a maximum of, if it's 8,000 square feet or whatever,
Yeah.
5,000 square feet, I don't know how big, but.
I'm gonna ask if we have the right to do that, so.
Yeah,
You building, did you win the lottery? You're gonna build 8,000 square foot.
oh, I'm not building anything, no.
Bird out. Bird out. He's maxed out his coverage.
Even that, the material is expensive.
No lot coverage,
Yeah, it's a bit more tension there. Okay, we can do this quickly, so. The last bit here, so make the following amendments to the zones as described in section 4 zones. So section 4.111, residential first density zone. So to be permitted would be to add additional dwelling units and to remove secondary dwelling units as previously mentioned. And same for residential second density R2 zone, so to add additional dwelling units and to remove secondary dwelling units. And then for section 4.11, rural zone, to add additional dwelling units and remove secondary dwelling units. And that would be the zoning bylaw.
General consensus on the last stuff that we just went through?
Well, is there any way that we can add the other zone? Like,
We gotta talk to North Bay Matawa.
yeah, but make note of it.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And if it's permitted, you'll add it.
The special zone?
Yeah.
Yeah, except for
myself.
our zoning bylaw, we have special zones further after our, so if there's a rezoning, in the past, all the zones have been called special zones. So we can't call them special zones, so it's for the residential limited zone that you're looking for. Residential limited services.
So it's in there.
Well, right now we have that it's not in there because of the lake capacity, and just generally the 30-meter setback from our water's edge is gonna make it hard. But we'll talk to, I have a note that we'll talk to North Bay Matawa Conservation, get what Gina had in writing,
Mhm.
so that we can say, yes, we're justified
And then
in
you
saying
make the
this.
amendments to
And
this.
make,
Like, I just made a general conversation and he was the
Yeah.
regulator,
so,
regulations.
so we would talk to them.
Okay,
Okay. Yeah, we
um,
do it.
We're good.
good, so. Great work by the committee, I think we've hammered out the vast majority, obviously, we'll get the context from the Conservation Authority. And make the amendments as they provide, right? Is the idea, and then the last piece about the size, we're just gonna get an opinion whether or not we can do up to a maximum of square footage. Okay, well, if it is permitted, what are people's comfort level on a maximum square footage? Well, let's just talk about that now, so we can get.
As a percentage or as a number?
As a number, because I think there'll be potentially both, but like, yeah. Well, I don't know, there would be potentially both, because how do you, either or, I guess, but
Yeah.
what's the point of that if you're gonna put a maximum ceiling?
Well, there is a point, because if you have a small house and then you wanna make that your secondary and build your primary, then the size would dictate how big you can do it, because then the third one would be a percentage of the primary. So when you throw in a number,
Or would it just be another 5,000 square foot? You could do another, no, maximum, like if it's a maximum of 5,000.
Yeah.
And your second, well, your second home you built to 5,000, and your third, you could build 5,000 again.
oh, you want to equate them all, okay,
If you wanted to, like
Yeah,
if
no, I
we
agree
do
with
a
that.
maximum of square footage, then.
yeah.
How would your
don't-
neighbours
Well, then you
react?
just want to put the maximum.
Well, it's gotta be setbacks, lot coverage, all of that still applies.
That wouldn't work.
I thought an ADU had to be.
Yeah, you
said
can't have
earlier.
three separates, right? You have to have two within and one.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, of course, yeah, the compliant, yeah.
No, you can have three separate.
No.
What do you mean, three?
No,
three-
one standalone.
One
One
alone and
separate
two
units.
separate. Plus,
Two within
yeah,
the same
yeah,
structure.
So
three
three
altogether.
three altogether.
Not three individual buildings.
So the primary plus two.
Two of them have to
Separated
touch
buildings.
at least by a wall.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But only
there's
one
lots
standalone.
of people-
Or
You can have a primary and two additional in,
Separate ones?
yeah,
Not detached, not.
yeah, well, that's why I asked for that, the diagram, right?
I thought-
Basically, originally, when we started talking about it today,
Mhm.
not last time, then there was a restriction on the fact that you can't have three in one building, because that would make it a multi-resident. I
Yeah.
agreed with that,
Mhm.
but there was no mention up until right now that you can't have three separate. I was always
No,
under the
that's
impression.
never-
Wording that we read.
That's never been permitted.
Oh,
Two in
That's
one
not,
and-
we've not discussed that.
oh, yeah.
Well, this isn't ours anyway, but
No,
But
that's
that's
that's the
basically what
minutes
works.
from the,
so we have, okay, right here, we have maximum of three. Per lot, where does it say that you can have
We read it out.
three detached?
in the first one, it says or. So you can have an interior renovation for an additional, you can have an interior renovation within an existing dwelling to a maximum of 2 dwelling units, or as an exterior addition, provided that one entire face of the addition is attached, or as a standalone unit with the same lot boundaries, but it only says for one, including minimum setbacks and appropriate.
Which page is this? Page
Uh,
four?
page 1,
First page, bottom.
under the definition.
So one and two are virtually the same. Not the same, and then the third one is a standalone.
Yeah, so you can have a standalone.
Two within the same building plus a standalone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or attached.
Right.
It'd be,
Yeah.
I don't agree with
Three
that.
together.
I don't
Well,
agree with that. I would say we should be permitted, especially in rural areas to.
I'm not sure that the regulation permits that.
Yeah, nobody
We
else.
don't mandate it to anyway.
I'm not, the ADU regulation set it that very similar to those same pictures that we had. Except for one, I think it was Kitchener who had 3 in one building, but they're the only ones that did. But the regulation set it 2 plus 1.
and the two would count as long as it's an attached wall.
Yeah.
Right, so it could be the 6 inches
Yeah.
attached, could be two, and then you'd have one.
Yeah.
Like a semi or a duplex.
Exactly, and then. A separate building.
Okay. Did we address that or? you still-
Yep.
All right, we better
Can I-
move to.
Can I
wrap
just
up
ask
then.
one question? For people to see this in this timetable. So you just have a few things to look into. And so you're saying, December 10th or 17th, council will consider the draft bylaw. So what, I was just saying, like, if that's not attached to your agenda, how are people supposed to know what that is?
Sure, so,
We don't want that to be public yet. though.
no,
No, but for the first and second reading, I'm talking about the meeting.
Right,
Well, you want people, if yous are passing it, you wanna be, you
What's on the
want people
agenda?
to see it.
yeah, it's always on the agenda.
Yeah, but shouldn't people be able to see it so that they can put in questions for that night from yous before you?
so there is no room in before we actually pass first and second reading, they have to reach out to individual counselors. At that point, so if they have concerns, they absolutely can.
So
reach
you're
out to
saying
anyways.
the public can't, you won't put it on your agenda that night?
It actually,
On the agenda as a draft.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yes.
talking about.
So
So
we
it's on
passed
the
first and second.
agenda as a draft, so on a Friday, it will be on the agenda.
That's what I'm talking about.
And then somebody can come in by Monday at noon and
Yeah.
put in a question that they have a question about it. Again, it's like we have a very limited question period, but they can come in and have that question, but council will be reviewing it then. They may say, go back and change this or change that and change that, and they may not give it first reading. They might only give it first reading or second reading, no, they can't, but they might not give it any reading.
Right,
We
right.
don't know what they'll do, but we hope.
Yeah, I guess all I'm asking is
Yeah.
that we would make sure that that was
Draft
an agenda,
bylaw.
was attached to the agenda for
Oh,
that
the
meeting.
draft.
The one that they're gonna approve for first reading.
Well, yeah, because we put the
Except-
full agenda on
Yeah,
for
it
council.
doesn't
We don't
package.
put the full agenda on for committees, but we put the full agenda package on for council.
Oh, and all
All
the,
the attachments are on for council.
yeah,
Yeah,
but not for corporate.
not for
No, not
committees,
for
generally
committees.
not for
Okay,
committees,
committees.
because
Okay,
committees just make recommendations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that,
Yeah. So it'll be there.
yeah,
And then, okay, so just for a matter of process moving forward from here, we're gonna get some clarity on a couple of pieces that will be shared with the committee as a whole. I would just ask that all correspondence just is circulated amongst all, if any questions or any concerns. It will go to the council as the anticipated dates of, sorry, you just read it. I think I wrote it to you and I forgot the
Yeah.
dates, yeah. On a 10th or
The 10th.
17th, depending on, I guess, how quickly we can pull this together. And then if it receives its first and second reading from council, it'll then have 21 days notice before the town hall meeting. And as always, we encourage anybody, including this committee, to reach out to any of the council members if you're feeling strong about something. Again, council gets the final decision, so you can always reach out to council and have a conversation and say, here's why I think. Even if you lost the conversation in the room, you can plead your case to a council member who may agree with you and bring it forward, so do that. We'll have the town hall meeting, take into consideration all that we've heard there, and then it'll be brought back for either revisions or third reading or whatever council decides after that. So that is the process.
and will you get back to us about the some of the questions we had tonight, or do we have to wait?
We'll be on it tomorrow. We'll come back to you as soon as we can.
Yeah, so what I asked is as they get it, we'll get another. So just communicate as a committee as a whole in the emails, and then if anybody has any concerns, then obviously. Let's just. Come to a consensus there if you have one, and if not, again, it's not a fait accompli by the time we send this up to council for consideration. You can always have a conversation with any council member or make any changes or considerations.
So, can you just explain why sometimes you would just do wouldn't do just a first reading of something so new rather than a first and second, just to
Yes.
give a little more time that somebody could say, oh, like, because sometimes you gotta think about it and, do a query, your own kind of little research for the
Yeah.
individual.
In order for us to be able to make any changes to it, it actually has to receive first and second reading before any alterations can be made.
Okay, so that's why you just do it first.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of municipal.
Yeah, sometimes it's first, second, third, if it's like a no-brainer.
Yes, of course.
Whatever, but yeah, no, this would be a first and second reading. I mean, council has the authority to do first and second, third, all in one, if that's what they choose, but I would be very, very surprised if that's what council chose to do here, which it won't be. So it'd be first and second, and then public consultations, we actually have the ability to make amendments at that point to it, and we don't
After first and second.
after first and second. It is just draft up until then that we cannot make changes to, so,
And then you always have the option, or we don't like it, send it back.
correct, yeah. Yeah, council might say that we didn't do what they were, they were hoping we would do and send it back, so.
But it seems we're not far off and we've come to some consensus here. So it's been a
Yeah,
positive
I thought it was
exercise,
positive
right?
exercise for sure.
Yeah. So,
Okay, I
Thank you for
appreciate
that.
your hard work. Let's, let's see here. I need a mover and sorry. Let's, just, so, and I don't have room for So other business, that the draft bylaw, I need a mover, there's no room for mover or seconder, but I'll just do. Small, but, moved by member Wimpy, seconded by member Foisey. That the draft bylaw prepared by staff in consultation with the planning advisory committee be forwarded to council for further consideration and or approval. All in favor? Okay,
I was gonna say pending, discussions, we're still having.
yeah,
Yeah, can it be, that vote be done? In the email after we settle on these
there
items?
is no mechanism for an email vote.
Okay,
Yeah,
Subject to answers.
Yeah,
to
because
the
I
two
think
inquiries.
especially like the
subject to, yeah, subject
Just a
to,
draft.
all votes subject to,
approval.
yeah, so I
Just
think,
a response.
I think, procedurally, I don't think that there's a mechanism, like it's kind of the honor system at this point, to be honest, if we're gonna pass this, it'll be like, okay, we are gonna have. Further, when we receive information, we'll try and get general consensus. I'll tell you as the chair, if it is showstopper and we can't come to consensus. We can call another meeting. If that's what we need to hash it out, but I would like to think that we'd have the ability to come to. Some level of a
My big
consensus or.
thing is I would wanna do a lot more discussion
Mhm.
if RLS is not included in that ADU, for sure. Because that's one of the things that were excluded. What are we, if RLSs,
special zone?
yeah. Right now are excluded. And that's one thing they're gonna have to look, so I wouldn't really wanna recommend something till I knew what's going on with that.
Well, what if we were to advance it as is, but obviously as the full review of the comprehensive zoning bylaw comes forward into 2025, then we add that to the list to review and evaluate that in further detail. So it's not to take it off the list, it's just to say to move this forward so that we have some more up-to-date housekeeping.
Yeah, I'm not trying to put additional pressure on this committee to pass something you're not comfortable with. The timeline that we're trying to meet, if at all possible, is for a public for the town hall. If we would like this as one of the subjects of the town hall.
Or leave it on the secondary dwelling. That's already in place for that zone.
So sorry, I'm not sure. I apologize.
In the OT,
Yeah,
it's already allows, permits a secondary dwelling.
there's a big garden thing.
No, a secondary dwelling,
Zoning,
secondary.
residential
They need
limited.
Not to have nothing.
So the residential limited services allows a cottage, a dwelling, single detached, a group home occupation, a garden suite, a guest cabin, or a secondary dwelling unit. So we just leave secondary dwelling unit.
Or leave it all as is until,
We have to remove garden suite because that was what our
Yeah.
consensus was earlier, but it's because it's.
But
been
we could
replaced with
leave garden
ADU.
suite as a
Well,
definition.
if secondary dwelling unit is permitted on those zones, then I don't see why an additional dwelling unit wouldn't be, because basically it's just. You have your second dwelling unit and then one basement apartment, you're done. It's the same thing,
Yeah,
so
one has to be attached.
I just voiced
Yes,
it
we
because.
do.
I just voiced it on concern because I didn't even read that portion, but that's in there, so.
that's in
Yeah,
the new.
so, and North Bay Matter Conservation might be able to give it to us in writing by Friday, so
Yeah.
that is
So
fine,
that's
right?
just the concern of recommending until that's clarified. Or,
Yeah.
or that in the alternative, until we figure out that area stays the same, you just don't change the OP in that area. To move on if there's,
We can do a virtual vote, if that makes you guys feel better.
Can't do it. All right,
We could call a virtual meeting.
call a virtual meeting. for
That's what I
sure.
mean, virtual
Oh, I
meeting,
see.
just start the meeting, vote,
Virtual special.
vote, and end the meeting, just.
Yeah.
As soon as we recognize these points. And that could
Absolutely.
be-
We do
Yeah.
virtual meeting.
yeah.
And so the public notice time is 24 hours. How many hours do we need to give that we're gonna have a meeting? I'm just trying to think of timing. Today is what,
Right.
I don't know
Wednesday?
Today's
Tuesday.
I don't know the committee rule, sorry.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
get back
okay.
to you.
Whatever it is, we'll meet the minimum threshold
Yes.
and, is there any rules about not meeting on, we can meet on weekends? So if it's a virtual meeting and it's a.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no
there's
rules
no-
about weekends, but
Okay, so fair enough. So we'll hold off on this recommendation at this point. We'll get those answers. We'll call a meeting, just we'll send everybody an email as to when that meeting is. Hopefully people are available.
Yep.
It should hopefully be fairly simple.
Mhm.
hopefully it's Friday.
Hopefully it's Friday. Yeah, whatever the minimum threshold is for public notice, we'll just meet that. And
Can people do in office hours if that's gonna happen?
yeah, if it's
I could do,
virtual,
I can do in office hours.
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
Friday after hours would be no, because it's a Christmas party. But
Well, that's how
We
we're
will
gonna
go
work.
there.
Because
Yeah.
that sounds good.
Join you.
I'll do it in my ugly sweater then.
Okay, so we're gonna defer. Oh, wait, I think I called it, but I have a mover and a seconder that, so we either carry, defer, or defeated, so are we looking to defer? This or? Defer, okay,
Defer.
yeah, we'll defer. There is no correspondence. There is no, well, there's unfinished business, but we're deferring, none on the agenda, adjournment moved by. Member,
Nobody wants to leave.
yeah, there, you're on the record, yeah.
You're on the books.
That this meeting be adjourned at 9:30 on the dot.
Oh, boy.
All in favor?
wow.
That's carried. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.